Okay, thank you. So like I said earlier, just a bit of background for you to have a general understanding of what you'll be doing as regards Scrum. Now, what we're going to be doing tonight is we're supposed to be focusing mainly on the Scrum ceremonies, but I also take my time to take like a few steps back to explain and give us a bit of background understanding of some principles. Okay, like I was saying, I'm going to take a few steps back just for you to have a bit of background knowledge as to what Scrum is about, what a bit of Agile, what some of our artifacts are like, just a bit here and here, so we can have a fair understanding of even what Scrum ceremonies are about. So at the start of the slide, I might just run through those ones, but it's almost always inevitable. We just have to explain as much as we can. So, but we'll try and work within time. In fact, we'll try and finish before time. So, like I said, please, if you have questions, feel free to ask. This is where you start asking. Don't feel shy. No question is silly. Even if we don't have answers to it, we'll give you feedback and give you the correct answers to it, right? So, once again, my name is Olaomi. So I'll be moving forward. I already mentioned earlier, we'll be talking a bit about what Agile project management is about, the frameworks, what Scrum itself, empiricism, all the ceremonies, um, and also what's Agile project management in the first place. So it's we need to understand project management as like a big umbrella. It's always easy to understand like that. Project management is the big umbrella, and it has two main methodologies in working it out, which is the waterfall and the agile itself. The waterfall is usually referred to as the traditional ways, while agile is more like the newer way. Or even when we call it new, agile has been in existence for over 20 years too. So it's not new, but it's just because the rate at which people are adapting or adopting Agile has really increased in the last few years. Hence the buzz and everything about Agile. So Agile is an iterative approach of delivering projects through its life cycle. What's the word iteration in the first place? Iteration is something you repeat, a process you do over and over again. So I always call people's attention to the pictures on the screen. It gives you a big, big understanding of what you're talking about, or what we're talking about rather. So in Scrum, we do things in a time box where development takes place little by little, from time to time, in a fixed duration and all that. So waterfall is that straight line where everything you want to do, you start, you plan everything, you gather your requirements, you design it, you develop it, you test everything that you've done. So everything that you have done, then you deploy. Then maybe after deploying to customers, worst case scenario, you do maintenance. Not everybody does maintenance, but maintenance is actually very ideal. So that's the waterfall process where you just do it at once, right? This same process in Agile will be done iteratively. That instead of doing everything at once, you might not even have a very clear picture as to what you want to do at the end, but you start gradually. So you start your requirement, you design it, you test it. You see this testing over and over again is where Agile really comes in. So you repeat the process, but you do it in bits. To break it down, bring it maybe a closer example so we can understand. So um, I want to build an estate. Let me use an estate as an example. In waterfall, they'll sit down, do a lot of planning, decide, okay, how many do we want to do? Let's say we want to do a very mini estate, 10 buildings to the right, 10 buildings to the left, and all. So in waterfall, they'll sit, do all the planning, map everything out. The architect will bring out the drawings, do everything. They've not even started anything, right? They'll map everything out, build the whole estate, everything before they even call customer to say, oh, yeah, come and see what you've done. Don't get me wrong, there's customer engagement at the start. You discuss with the customer. The customer gave us the proposal anyways, that he wants, 10 buildings or 20 buildings in all. And all the design came put together. and then they do it, right? Now, on the other side of things, which is the agile side of things, okay, you want 10, all right? So we map out as much as we can. There'll still be planning. People always mix that to think there's no planning, right? Because waterfall is not outrightly, it's not a bad methodology, right? But agile is just more of the improved methodology, can take up changes and all that. So that's why people lean towards agile. So for agile, instead of building the whole 20 at once before you call the customer, agile is so iterative in doing things that after they do the foundation of even just the first building, we'll call the customer, yeah, come and see, do you like it? Okay, we'll do any testing we need to test, be sure it's good. Customer says, oh no, I know that I said before that I wanted a 4-bedroom, but as it is, I think because of the space I'm seeing, let's make it a 5-bedroom. We're adapting to change as we go. We're making changes immediately. We will not be upset as architects that after drawing plans, yeah, you can be upset behind the customer's back, but you just need to rejiggle things immediately, make the changes happen, and get it working. So that's the side of agile that people are embracing. Because you can imagine building the whole 20, and then customer comes and say, what is this? This is not what I planned in my head. People might have a picture in their head and tell you that picture, but you might not get the picture as clearly as you think you've gotten it. That's usually just what happens in waterfall side of things. But some people are already very expert in it and they can still scale through. So we have a lot of companies still doing waterfall, and it doesn't mean they are not delivering, right? But people have really linked towards agile because it avoids waste, it makes that satisfaction epic, like good satisfaction from the customer, because the customer was in that journey. The customer was able to immediately identify that they did not want a 4-bedroom, they wanted a 5. The customer was able to say, oh, can we shape this side to a curve rather than it being a rectangle? The customer was there from the beginning. So agile ways of things is just delivering projects throughout its life cycle iteratively and helps deliver value to customer faster. At the beginning, the customer you can imagine the waterfall guy, customer has gone for months, doesn't even really know what is happening, worst case scenario, a phone update, but the customer is not in that journey. The customer is not even feeling the vibe, just waiting for a report at the end of the day. But there's a lot of excitement when it comes to agile. Customer is already in the whole business. Customer is virtually even building with you, right? But not literally. But the customer is in the whole process. So there's no how you finish that job and the customer will not be satisfied. It's just a very lean chance that the customer will say, oh, I'm not satisfied. But you see that a lot. That's why a lot of projects back then, there were lots of white elephant projects. Anyways, let's not go into that, but just focus is the agile and traditional ways of things. In agile, we do things in bits. Traditional ways of things, we do it, complete the whole phase at once. That's the major, difference. So I already mentioned it with my example, saying there's constant collaboration with the stakeholders and continuous improvement at every phase. And you can't beat this. This continuous improvement has to do with the changes I spoke about. They are improving things as they are going. In fact, you can imagine you've planned something, then you're doing it waterfall way kind of thing. But in Agile, you've planned it, and there's a new development somewhere, like a new type of design that is now in vogue. You can inculcate it into your design. You can change things as you're going. So it breeds a whole new fresh air into every project. So that's why usually, agile ways of working was maybe, no, not maybe, was introduced more to the software kind of side of things. But trust me, engineering, manufacturing, everybody are leaning towards agile because with the little time it has spent in the life cycle of projects, they've seen that it removes a whole load of waste. You can imagine that building now. The customer really insists. If the customer is a big man, for example, I really insist that no, with what he has now realized, he really needs the 5-bedroom. So you can imagine us breaking the building, moving this one, adding that one. But in Agile, from the first building, we already know that there is an error that we want to amend. So we just go with the changes. So that's why people have really leaned towards Agile. Okay. So moving on. Like I said previously, Agile is a particular methodology under project management. So there are several frameworks under Agile. Trust me, these are just limited frameworks. There are lots of other frameworks, but I only brought the ones that are very popular, and more popular are the Scrum, which is like, I'll just put it as the number one popular amongst all the whole frameworks, next to Kanban. In fact, some companies even combine both. You hear some companies, don't be a stranger when you hear some people say, oh, in my company, we do Scrum Ban, which is a combination of Scrum and Kanban. Then when it comes to lean side of things, lean is just avoiding waste totally. So it leans more towards the manufacturing side of things. DSDM, Crystal, extreme programming, FDD, they are all different agile ways of working. Most of the other ones are not too popular. I know DSD is a bit popular in some organizations, but mostly people do Scrum, Kanban, and Lean in Agile. So I always like to still show this so we have an understanding of it. So this is Agile, which is the main umbrella. So we have all these frameworks under it. So Agile is the methodology and has loads of frameworks under it. So there's even one that's not here that, okay, yeah, it's here now. So it's SAFe. SAFe is just scaled Agile and is used more, this is used more for very complex projects. So companies that are into engineering or have very versatile amount of work or delivery on their projects to do. The more complex a project is, most companies will lean towards SAFe. And when they do SAFe, they don't do SAFe alone. They'll do SAFe, with a bit of Scrum or even with a bit of Scrum and Kanban. And the reason for this is because in SAFe, you can do like PI plannings, which is like quarterly plannings for each of the team, not even the team as a whole, even the whole, the whole organization. You do your planning quarterly, so you can have a very good idea of what you're doing in the next 12 weeks. You can't plan for a full calendar year, it's too much. Of course, there's always a bit of planning there and there, but for you to do a deep dive into, your planning, you pick it in quarters. So most organizations that even use Scrum and Kanban, they use SAFe. Okay, so moving forward, what is Scrum in itself? What this Scrum that everybody, I'm sure, even if we don't know much on this call, right? Most of you have heard of this Scrum I'm saying. Scrum. What is this Scrum that everybody's talking about? What is Scrum framework? So it's designed to help teams collaborating on complex products iteratively and incrementally. You will not stop hearing me talking about iteration and increments in the next hour, because that's all what Scrum, hovers around. That's what Scrum talks about. So I'll explain a bit again what iteration is about. I've said it before that it's like a repetition of a process. So there's this thing we refer to as time boxing when you do things between this period to this period. That's, well, in Scrum, usually the time box is usually between 1 to 4 weeks, where team have to develop their products, right? So there's that small window of 1 to 4 weeks, but usually, not always, usually most teams use 2 weeks. And that is usually referred to as a sprint. So some people call sprint iteration and iteration sprint, but they're not really same, but you can just use them interchangeably sometimes. So sprint is now that breakdown of work that you do within 2 weeks. So a team comes together, they set out their goals, plan it for the 2 weeks. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to do. This is our product goal. They sit down. This is our sprint goal. And at the end of the 2 weeks, they tell you this is their increment. I'll explain those artifacts so I don't confuse you. Okay. So moving forward, Scrum team helps teams structure and manage their work through a set of value, principle, and practices that the Scrum team follows to deliver a product or services. So everything, one of the reasons people lean, when you have something that is very clear to you, that is very clear and easy to practice and follow by organization will lean towards this, which is why Scrum has been very helpful in the last couple of years. So Scrum have set of rules that they follow. They have values. There are different values. There's the agile value, there's the Scrum values, right? So there are values in Scrum that people follow, which is the main bedrock of what people use to align themselves to Scrum. There are principles that must be followed, there are practices that the Scrum team has to follow to deliver a product or a service, right? As we go, we'll have just a tip of those values. Like I said, all what I'm still doing, we've not gotten to the Scrum ceremonies. When we get to the Scrum ceremony, with a bit of this understanding, we'll be able to carry through on the Scrum ceremonies. So we have a bit more understanding. It's also one of the most widely used, as I've explained earlier. So the framework in itself, right? I've already mentioned that there are a set of roles, rules, and events that that must be used to implement an agile project. I'll use this picture to explain all this and just drive it home for us, right? It also emphasizes teamwork, accountability, iterative progress towards a well-defined goal. It provides enough structure for people and team to integrate and an iterative approach, right? So going back to iteration, I've explained iteration in a way. It's a time box where development takes place. That's just a period of time where development takes place. So in this my picture, this is that period of time. I already told you they've picked up the task, so they do that iteration within this period of time. Now, the reason some people use longer iterations, it depends. It might be that they've realized with time that they are not able to break down their work as small as they can to work within 2 sprints. So you see some sprints using 3 sprints. It depends. You can imagine some engineering projects, no matter how you try to break down some things, because of the heavy runs they do on each of the things they are developing, they might not be able to finish between 2 weeks. So such things can increase to 3 weeks. But there's this understanding we must know about Scrum, that for you to work in Scrum, you must be able to break your work into smaller chunks and finish it within the period. But there are always exceptions. Some even give some excuses that if there's limited opportunity to collaborate, speak with stakeholders, people can elongate their sprint. But like I said, on an average, most people use a 2-week sprint. You see very few teams that use 1-week sprint or even 4 weeks, but there are. So don't be a novice to it. That's why it's been mentioned. But on an average, people use 2 weeks. So I'm going to ask some questions at the end, and I hope people will get, answers to them. Okay, so, and on the flip side, the increment I've been talking about now is addition. Just like the word is, when you increase something, you're working on something, you want to produce something, and then you produce them in bits, then you keep adding to it. So this work that you've done in 2 weeks, okay, can you build a house in 2 weeks? You really can't, no matter how fast you try. It's a house, for crying out loud. Why am I even using house? House is too big. People use years to even build house sometimes. Okay, if you have enough money, you can build it in some months, right? But like, to develop a website now, a fully functional website that is robust enough, for the customer to be able to fly, right? And for you to release it with no itch, very user-friendly, customer is happy and all that, you might take, a couple of weeks to do that, right? You might use even 2-3 months or even more, depending on how complex the website is, right? So you want to build a website, as small as a website is, right? In 2 weeks, you can decide that you want to do maybe the landing page, the header of imagine a website, how it is. When you get to a website, you must get to a page now, right? So that page, all the functionalities, the menu button, the signing in and all that, you can do it even in 2 weeks. But there's some other things embedded in them that you need to keep doing as you're going. So, but in Scrum, when we say increment, it must be something that an addition must be added to for you to call it an increment, in the sense of, okay, we do only the landing page today, this sprint and the menu, right? The next sprint, we can be doing the footer and all. The next sprint, we might be doing, anything that we're going to be doing, we're going to be adding to the product to have value. Anything we're adding must be of value. So that's where incremental is coming in. So you must ensure that all incremental work, they work together in order to provide that value that is usable. You can't just add value and it's not useful. That's why I always find it very, very, very difficult not to, maybe if I take some steps back, if you don't mind, not to refer to this picture. It's always, anytime we're talking Scrum, if we don't refer to this picture for me, it's always a bit, difficult to explain. So I know it's very small, but if you see these tires, somebody wants a car and you built a tire for the person. Please, what does your customer want to do? Is there value in just tire? What does the customer want to do with just the tire? The customer will be looking at you is, what's this person giving me? The customer can never smile at you. The customer can never be happy. The following sprints, they did another extra tires. It can't work like that, right? But on the flip side, they're adding value to the customer here by giving the customer what is usable. Well, he's not really happy with a skateboard. He's just probably neutral, with a scooter. But by the time he was getting to a power bike, at least he can move from place to place without any itch. So by the time he saw his car, he was all smiles because he's been able to see that progress. An addition to that customer, the additional value that we are looking for is what the whole Scrum idea is about. Additional value. Additional value. So anything you're doing in your teams, because what we are going to be doing in BlueSky is hands-on project. Anything you're doing in your teams that is not adding value, please desist from it. Sit back as a team, have that discussion, and find better ways of doing things. That's the whole idea. So product increment is whatever that you've previously developed before, and you now add a new thing, just to add, like a latest version of that thing. So you just add an additional thing in subsequent sprint, then you integrate everything together, you bring it all together, test it, and then you can say you're ready to deliver to a customer. So as we are building the house that we used at the start, just the foundation, you see, we're still working towards the house. By the time we carry it to linted, I don't know those architectural terms. By the time you raise it up to the roofing stage, okay, you see you're adding. By the time you put the roof, you're adding. By the time you put the windows, you're adding. By the time you put the electrical work, you're adding. Those things that you're adding month on month or weeks on weeks is what the increment is about, right? So that's increment and iteration. Iteration is repetitive project process. Increment is that value that you're adding. In simple terms, repetitive process and the value you're adding, that's the difference between the two. So Scrum framework provides just enough structure for the people and the team to integrate into how they work while adding the right practices to optimize their specific needs. And is an iterative approach consisting of sprint. We've explained what sprint is about. That's the period of time, the duration of time, a single time box iteration of continuous development cycle. So the teams, they need to complete all what they've planned within that designated time frame. All the work that they've planned, they will lay out work. So like I said earlier, I'm going to use this picture. I also have it at the end to just do a last summary, of what we're talking about. So now back to the picture. This should have clarity. At this point, if we're not clear, I'm happy for anyone to raise their hands. Please, Damisola, let me know who is raising their hands if they have any questions. So this is our stakeholders in the organization. You've been recruited to work somewhere, right? Or a customer, approaches and say, okay, this is what they want. There's somebody that is the heartbeat of, the team, that are the visionaries of the team. They tell you exactly what the stakeholder wants. They are called the product owner. I'll explain a bit on the team members as we go. So the product owner gets all the requests, from the executives, and they make it like a product backlog, all the things we think we want to do. So when the team sits down to do those Scrum ceremonies we're going to talk about, that's why I said I have this picture at the end also to explain. But I just want you to have a bit of understanding as we go, right? So the team sits down to plan, their sprint, which is that 2-week sprint that we're taking now. They sit down to plan their sprint. So you see that they've decided they wanted to do, these are all the things they think they wanted to do in the first place, but they picked the first 3. That's the coloring aspect of it. So they picked just the first 3, that this is what they want to do within this 2 weeks time frame. So when they've picked it, they now broke those things into tasks, which became their sprint backlog, and that's now their goal, right? So that goal is what they were now working with within 2 weeks. They kept working with it. In between, they were doing their ceremonies, which is all these ceremonies you're seeing, they're all ceremonies, right? They started doing their ceremonies. And at the end, they had an increment, which is this finished work. So they start, this person receives the details and tells the team. This person is gluing, the Scrum Master is gluing all these activities together, right? The team are the ones actually doing the work. You need to respect the team, actually. That's why we also like Agile. There's no hierarchy in Agile. We respect ourselves. Everyone is equal, So the team does this whole hard work, and trust me, the Scrum Master is working hard, the product owner is working hard to bring it together for you to break your work into smaller tasks, work within 2 weeks, do your activities, your stand-up, your sprint planning, your review, your retrospective, everything within that 2 weeks, and then you now form an increment. So after you formed an increment, you review that increment that you formed with your stakeholders, and then you now retrospect on everything that you have done. That's the whole Scrum. You see, Scrum is very easy. Now, if I step back to the rules, roles, and events I've spoken about, do you know they are all in this picture? So the roles are these guys, pam, 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 which is a Scrum Master. We have just 3 major roles in Scrum, and the team consists of like the developers, right? And when we talk of developers, we're talking of virtually every other role on this call, right? They are the ones doing the actual work. And in the real side of things too, we have designers, we have engineers that are part of this team, and developers themselves that will develop the work here. Okay, so for the events are these ceremonies that you're seeing. So the Scrum meeting, the sprint review, and all that. So the rules, the same pattern that it goes, in the sense of the artifacts, telling us product backlog. You first gather every requirement, you pick a few things that you want to work on, and then you start working on it. And then there are several other rules within it. In between this, you're doing your empiricism, which is transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Everybody's seeing what everybody's working on. There's clarity as to what we're doing. There's visibility. There's inspection as we are walking around it. There are other rules that are governing this. We need to be focused. We need to be committed and all that. You see all the rules as we go. So we give all these rules, and events. That's what consists of what Scrum is, right? And lastly, to mention before we leave this slide is a Scrum team is usually a small team, just a nibble number of teams, right? The thing is, for a team to have something, how do I put this? When a team is too large, it becomes a bit chaotic. There is even more rifts. There's more, but a typical size of a Scrum team is 10 and below, maybe plus or minus 2, worst case scenario. We don't even say plus or minus 2 when we use 10. It's when we use the word 7 that we say plus or minus 2. But I had to put 10 here because that's the direction of the Scrum Guide. Scrum Guide says 10 or less, actually. So say 10, 7, 8. When you have those kind of numbers within the team, that's the Scrum team. And also note that that number is the number that you know that can finish up that work you've cut out for this sprint. You don't just say because Scrum says a very small number. How about if the project you're doing, really involves a lot of other dynamic roles that you need to have at least one designer, you need to have one engineer, you need to have one full stack developer, you need to have, by the time you put them together, you might be running into 12 or more. So anything that works to make sure that you're able to deliver value at the end of the sprint is what, the number that you use, but typically advised is around 10 people for a Scrum team, okay? So we can't mention Scrum without mentioning Scrum Guide. There's this 17 software developers that came together. But Scrum Guide
sorry, Olawumi, someone has a hand up. Adeze.
Oh, right. Thank you, Sola. Adeze, do you want to shoot?
Yeah, my question is on the Scrum team, yeah?
Okay.
So no matter the size of the project, how large the project is, it mustn't exceed 10 people. Yeah?
No. So that's why I said you can't be too rigid, right? The Scrum Guide guides us to 10 people. Now,
okay.
The reason is just to avoid a bit of chaos. There's this Stockman model we always talk about, storming, forming, and all that, right? It starts with forming, then you storm before you norm and all that. You get to hear it as the internship goes on, right? So if you have too many people to guide, you to think about it. If you are directing 20 people or 30 people to do a project, there'll be a lot of chaos. There'll be a lot of, in fact, they'll form Voltron for you, they'll form gang. But the lesser the people, it's easier to, I don't want to use the word control, but it's easier to manage, right? To manage the team. Also note that the word being managing individuals in Scrum is not a word that is allowed, but you still have to manage a team, right? So to manage a team of individuals is usually like a 10 plus or minus 2. There's always a flexibility. But like I said, sometimes there are some projects that really require some SMEs. When I mean SMEs, I mean subject matter experts, right? So like I said, if the project is like a design project, you might need more people in your team. So those more people, just make sure they are a reasonable number of people, not too many. Don't let an organization come to you and give you, I'll use an example of myself. Like when I first resumed in my team, we're like about 30, 40 people put together, right? For us to manage. It was a bit chaotic.
Scrum team, eh?
Yes, Scrum team, highly Scrum team. So we had to break that Scrum team into smaller bits. We now started breaking it into group of 7. In fact, there are some that are 5, 6, like that. So we broke those for something at the end of the day into 5 separate teams, right? Amongst the other teams that I had prior. So it's just to have manageable size of individuals to avoid chaos. But no matter how large that project is or whatever it is, that's now the idea of Scrum. You break it down into chunks you can work out within 2 weeks, using priority to determine the work you want to do. I don't know if you get the gist. It's big, but there are some MVPs they want immediately. That's minimum viable products, right? That they want immediately. So you get priority from this guy. You see this guy, don't play with him. He's going to tell us the priority that we should work on, and then we work in bits. You can't kill yourself now, right? You need to deliver on the project. So at the start of the project, when the whole team has sat down, you know that you're 10 people. No matter how large that project is, you will now use this to decide the length of period for that project. So nobody can give you a very big project and come and bamboozle you and tell you that you should do 3 months to deliver it, when you know that a Scrum team's capacity cannot handle that project in 3 months. So there and there at the start, you need to start knowing that, this project, by the way we've broken down this task a bit and decided it's going to take us roughly like 7 or 8 months. Okay, so because we want to put a buffer, we'll lean towards 8 months more, like that. So we should be able to have that understanding at the start. So don't exceed this flexibility, but you must be slightly flexible too in your organizations. Doesn't mean you should take crap, but you need to work with them. In fact, I didn't get them to say, 40, I can't do it though. No. The moment you start doing I can't do spirit, they're already relegating you in their hearts. I always tell people, first things first, you have to have a very good open mindset when it comes to Agile. It's about flexibility, it's about change. So at the start, I made my point known that, this is quite a large thing for Agile. I spoke with the people that matter on it, my leads, my manager, that, okay, this is quite going to be chaotic as we're going. People will not even have a deep understanding. Okay, imagine 40-something of us doing stand-ups. We literally run through the stand-up, like, we even select people to speak. You understand? That bad, because sometimes we use 30 minutes for stand-up, 45 minutes for stand-up, and stand-up is supposed to be 15 minutes. As we go, all the timings for the roles. So where I'm just driving to is be open, be flexible, and okay, go ahead.
Okay, so for our various classes, we have to practice Agile here. We'll be shared, the normal team size.
For this, your cohort, coincidentally, yes, something close, yeah. Okay. But usually, the reason we share way over the, Scrum size is because, in simple ways, because you're just learning, we see you as half. No, half is too much.
Because it's like, right? Because we are told, this is like work experience, and you go for interview.
Oh, you're going to have
more than that, I don't know if that is going to affect us, when you go for interview.
No, it's not going to affect you because we'll give you the clarity. Even you will draw the map of what an ideal team should look like. The reason we do, more than the required number for this is because of availability. Imagine if you are the only Scrum Master in your team and you have an emergency, not necessarily a bad emergency, maybe a good emergency, like you want a trip to Paris, you must go, or you have an interview slated during the time you're supposed to be preparing for something, or you're the only Scrum Master and you really do not have the knowledge exactly of how you want to carry out some things. So you have other Scrum Masters within your team that you can put head together, work together as one to make this happen, right? But ideally, in the real world, we have only one Scrum Master. You see, that's why we have only one person as a Scrum Master. There's no two captains in a ship, right? We don't refer to the Scrum Master as a captain. We refer them to as true leaders, right? But only one man mopo. The product owner is a one-man mopo. It's only the team that we can have those remaining 7 or 8 or 10 people, But together we should be 10 plus or minus 2.
So Scrum Master is usually one and PO.
Scrum Master is usually one, but on your on this you're going to have more than one Scrum Master, most likely. Just for your learning process, you will have very good clarity on it, don't worry. And you'll still practice everything you need to practice properly as we go. You have people to handhold you and guide you. You cannot make that mistake in interviews. Don't worry too much, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
So
Thanks, Olawumi. Sorry, another hand of Tuna.
all right.
I hope I said that right. Would you like to go on?
Yes. Yeah, just a question about this Scrum. Just looking at the diagram, does it mean that realistically on a project, there could be many Scrum teams working on the same project? Because I'm just thinking, you gave the example of building a house. So if you're building a house, there's going to be bits that are not necessarily, that don't have to be done sequentially. So is it, in real life, would it be a case of where someone could be working on the porch while someone is working on the garden, while someone is working on the kitchen, and then it all comes together? So like there's because that's what I'm just wondering, it's just a question, that is it realistic on projects that there'll be multiple Scrum teams? Is that the right name? Scrum teams working on the same project, but working simultaneously.
All right, thanks for the question, Tuna. So usually, trust me, most of you will not be working in construction. I only use that as an example to drive home the point because we all have a good understanding of that. Because I'm sure when I was mentioning earlier that there's menu button, there's header, footer, some people that are completely novice to it might not have an understanding, but everybody should have an understanding of when I say a building, when I say foundation, people have an understanding. Hence why I use that example. But still, the answer is still yes to your question, that several teams can be working. I'll give a typical example. Let me go local. You want to build a car. One team cannot build a car, right? So if you're in an engineering organization that you want to build a car, or you're in NHS, they are trying to put a process in place for pharmaceuticals or something, most likely one team, because that's where that complex project, remember I spoke about SAFE? When you have complex projects, several teams work on it. But where I'm now saying no to, this picture is not actually referring to several teams, right? If you notice, can you see the colors? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that 5 that is repeated here and here and here for all the, work? It's the same set of people, but now we brought them together because these 5 people will have this Scrum meeting. These 5 people will be doing the sprint planning. This finished work by the product owner will be the one doing all those delivery side of things, right? The team here again, the full squad will do the retrospective. So it's these same guys that are these guys, right? But for your question, different people, different teams can be working on different things. If I want to use a car as an example, you will not believe how crazy a car is. So it's as bad as those joints in the leg of the car, right? You just assume that it's one team that work on the whole shaft, or what's that thing they call there? Oh, that's part of me. Or one team that work on the engine. You cannot believe that 100 teams are working on only engine, right? 100 guys are working on chassis. 100, when I mean 100 guys, I don't mean in counts, I mean in teams. So that means just, this side of things, it might be a team of 10 working on only the talk. I know you won't understand what talk is, but let me just leave it that way. Or a set of people working on e-color side of things, or set of people working on. So there are different teams that will be working on that same vehicle you probably want to produce in 2030, right? So it's not one team that will sit and say, okay, let's do the whole car. It's not possible. Some teams are doing the software side of things in the car that we can't even touch. Some teams are doing as little as the design of the car, maybe the front design or the light design. Different people are working on creating what you see and depict as a full car, for example. In NHS, if they are doing same, people are doing different aspects of the work. So it depends on the part of the project that your team is giving. And of course, they always determine this by the technical know-how of that team. They won't bring a team that doesn't have experience in design to come and do design, right? Or a team that doesn't have experience in chassis to come and do chassis, or different things. So different teams for the same project. Yes, very, very possible when it's a complex project. But if it's a simple project as simple as building a website, you need just one team for that. You don't need several teams to start and finish doing a particular website, except if the website is very complex too, then, but at the same time, where you also have several teams doing things, it also depends on dependencies, right? A team can be doing on that side of things that you need to wait, just like the house. You can't do your electrical work when they've not carried the building up, or is it when they are doing foundation, you'll be doing electrical work? It won't work that way, right? So you sort of need to pass baton when you're doing it. So when you pass baton, you'll be able to say, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing next. This is the time I'm going to do it. So at the time of that planning, you can say, oh, in 3 weeks' time, this team expect this. We're going to give you this thing to work on. Then they are waiting at that 3 weeks, maybe a few days to the 3 weeks. They're sending a reminder that we need this data to be able to complete this. So like that, that's where dependencies come in. But as we go, like I said, you get to understand this. I'm just trying to make you understand as much as possible. I'm really conscious of time, but I hope it answers your question, Tona.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Olawumi. You also have a question in the comments.
Okay, let me see the question.
Okay, so this one, I can read it out. So this one says, please, I would like to ask, are the teams also Scrum Masters?
What do you mean, are the teams? Okay, the question is a bit, Olamide, are you happy to speak? Are the teams also Scrum Masters?
Hello, good evening.
Okay. Hi, good evening.
Because you said the Scrum Master is the leader in the team.
Okay, that's what I'm trying.
We have a team as well, a team of about 7 to 10. So those teams, are they also like Scrum Masters? Like,
oh,
maybe...
okay. Now I get your question. Okay, so let me cancel this. So there's what we call composition of a team. Different people come together to make up a team, right? So there's a composition of a team. Now, these 10 people that we are referring to in the Scrum Guide is a composition of all these guys. So in a Scrum team, just for clarity, because of Olamide and maybe one or two people that are not clear, in a Scrum team, a team makes up of 3 different roles, right? The 3 roles are, number 1, the product owner, who is the vision of the team that gives you the priority and the acts from the stakeholder. That's the product owner, right? So we have the product owner. Aside the product owner, the next person we have is the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is a true leader. Before we used to call them servant leader, trying to make sure the team is. The whole idea of the Scrum Master is to just ensure that the team are able to follow all those rules and processes, values, and everything, right? The Scrum Master are able to guide their team to be able to do this by facilitating facilitating everything, making sure that the team is accountable for their effectiveness, making sure that the team is able to improve on those practices. Because when you start a team, they are not even vast in all this. Like how you are now, trust me, in the next couple of sprints, you won't be in this language because you already have a bit more understanding. Same as your team. When you start a team, most times, especially if the team is completely new to Scrum, you as a Scrum Master, you need to guide your team, you know, you need to serve your team well and guide them into these agile ways of working. You need to coach your team members from time to time. You need to help them stay focused. You need to help them remove impediments. You need to help them stay positive to be able to be productive and have good increments. I don't want to use the word good now. It's quality increments at the end of each sprint. So as a Scrum Master, you are part of these guys. See us here as a full ninja. It's like driving without a mirror. This customer is directing the team. Okay, this is this. If there's any issue, you are guiding them to how to resolve it. You're not the one to resolve it. Because, for example, if I'm not technical, right? I'm not a technical Scrum Master, but my team is technical. These guys are crazily technical. If they have an issue, do you think I can resolve that their technical issue? No. But I'll guide them towards the resolving of this technical issue. If they need somebody, I can try and facilitate that conversation between them, set up meetings, invite those guys to resolve this issue and on time. So these guys together form the Scrum team, the product owner, the developers, and the Scrum Master. So they are one as a team. So it's these 5 guys that are supposed to be highest 10 plus or minus 2, right? So this guy will always be 1. This guy will always be 1. But you see these guys, they can be 8, they can be 6, they can be 3, they can be 10, they can be, but not really overly over 10 as together. So we've said, in ideal, if I want to go by Scrum Guide, this guy should be 8, this guy should be 1. But is it compulsory you have 8 people in your team? The project might not need 8, developers, testers. Trust me, this developer has to do with both software testers, the developers that are developing themselves. If the project requires a designer, they need a UI UX designer. If the project requires a DevOps engineer, they need an engineer. If the project requires just a regular, engineer, they need an engineer. If they need SAD, MAD like that, it depends on what the team needs, right? So it's the need of the team that determines the composition of the team. But ideally, 1 PO, 1 SM, and 8 or below, team members. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. I got it now.
All right, Olamide. So they are part of the ninjas. A Scrum Master is in the team. A PO is in the team. The team members are in the team themselves, right? And they are referred to as developers. Before now, you'll be hearing development team, but that word development team sort of has been scrapped by the latest Scrum Guide. In the Scrum Guide, I forgot to mention to you guys that there's been improvements. So this Scrum, the guys that spoke about that did this, they are 17 in number, but 2 are the forefront. Ken and what's the other guy's name? They are the 2 in the forefront that, led the group of the developers to create this Scrum Guide. So in their Scrum Guide, they made it very, very clear there as to what each person should be doing. So your first assignment for me now, everyone, please note, go and read the Scrum Guide. It's about 13 pages. And the first 2 and the last page is acknowledgement and co. The first one is, of course, the cover page. And the next page is like the table of contents and exactly the pages you find what you're looking for, right? So what you need to read is roughly 10 pages. And it gives you a clear overview of what Scrum is. So just go online and type Scrum Guide. It's going to give you all the juice you need to know about Scrum, right? And like I said, as you read, please do not be rigid. You need to be very flexible when it comes to Scrum, but don't bend the rules, right? But you need to accommodate, you need to listen to your team, you need to be able to guide them towards the right path. That's where you come in as even team members. You guide yourself towards the right path as a team. So we have the Agile Manifesto. I'm not from here on, in the next couple of slides, I'm just going to breeze through. So this is your second assignment. Go and read through the Agile Manifesto. I purposely showed this one that captures everything. So the Agile Manifesto tells us about the 4 values of Agile. Please note I said values of Agile. And then the 12 principles of Agile. It's always good for you to know it. You also see the clause that says that we value, the items on the right, but we value the one on the left more. So read it, chew it. If you have questions on it, feel free to ask your mentors and buddies as you go. And then the Scrum principle, everything always boils down to the customer for us to satisfy the customer. Okay, so that's the manifesto. Now, the pillars of Scrum. You remember when I was giving an explanation earlier, I spoke about transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So in everything we do for Scrum, you need to have visibility. The visibility is everything we're doing. We need to be transparent as to every details we're working on, whether in your absence or in your presence. Anybody that comes to your board, for example, you understand when I mean board and everything, or that comes to see anything within the team, will have that clarity as soon as they get there because your team is transparent, right? You need to key in on transparency. So transparency is like the significant aspect of work, right? The processes you want to do, all your responsibilities, your outcome that you want to do within the team, it must be clear. It must be visible to everyone. So every step of the process must be open for inspection and visible to everyone involved. And then from inspection is, you see the meetings we want to do, most of it have a bit of inspection in them. I will mention this during the explanation of the Scrum. So I actually wanted to finish this session by 9, so we'll go into the ceremony straight away. So we're right on time, right? So the inspection part of it is just timely checks, regular checks, right? For progress of work. If there's anything undesirable, the team will sit and discuss about it and immediately synchronize, get it corrected, and move on. So that's the inspection side of things. And adaptation, I mentioned adaptation by using the word changes, right? So any process, as soon as there's any issue, we quickly adjust, so that we can minimize any waste as much as we can. Once something comes up, we quickly adjust, minimize waste, and we're able to quickly adapt to the correct thing. Like, for example, you remember when we're building our house that the customer said he wanted a 5 instead of a 4-bedroom flat, because we've not even wasted, we're just in foundation of first one. And the customer has already given us that, okay, he wants that. So we've not wasted any money, just to cut out a bit, do a bit of adjustment, and we're able to adapt to those changes. So the team should always be willing to adapt to these changes, okay? So I already mentioned in this previous slide about the Agile values. So here are now the Scrum values. I'm not going to explain this because they are direct. The Scrum values are just courage, focus, commitment, respect, and openness. I always tell people to use maybe code words or acronyms to just keep this in their head. Like this one now, I'm not saying it will come out in your interview or anything, but usually you'll be surprised they can throw anything at you. And even aside throwing this at you, when you're explaining things in interview, you should be able to interchangeably use these words. It propels the person to know that you understand what you're saying. So some people will say it's AIT, just like it is, where most people on the calls are probably Nigerians, right? So when we say AIT, you know what we mean. It will always stick to your head, even if you cannot say it's the reverse way. But me, I prefer to always call it TIA, transparency inspection, because I like the TIA twins, right? So I like TIA specifically, so I always use TIA. So just have it at the back of your head, even if you don't want to cram anything today. This one, it deserves a cramming. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Same as this. I use for CC, like FOR then CC, but you can use anything to remember. Some people will just say CF, CRO, or whatever it is. But please put it in your head. So when anybody asks you the values of Agile, you can easily say, oh, these are the values. It's courage, it's focus, it's commitment, respect, and openness. Just as the word is, there's no special explanation. So you should be courageous within the team, right? Everybody, and the good part is all these things working hand in hand, though. So in your team, if you're speaking down on somebody, maybe Turner called me now and asked a question, and I say, oh, that's a very silly question. Do you think Turner will want to ask a question next time? She might just reserve her energy and on. So you can imagine in your team where people are supposed to be developing things, if you shush them, right? Or not even only shush, if you just bring down their spirit in doing things, they will not be enthusiastic to want to, get things done. So with this, that person cannot be focused, that person cannot be committed to work. There's no respect already within the team because I spoke disrespectfully to the person. And how do you expect the person to be open? So that's why I said they even work interchangeably. So you can just look through. Focus is everyone focusing on their work. Commitment is people putting their, they're personally trying to achieve the goals that we've set out for the sprint, respecting each other, and then you're open to stakeholders. Even if you make mistakes, if Olamide makes a mistake, Olamide can come up and tell us immediately that, oh, sorry, I think I moved it wrongly. I was supposed to do this and everything. And the team will not need to chastise her because she'd come out openly to tell us and say, okay, what's the way forward? What can we do to correct this? Okay, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And then Olamide can learn from, the mistake she has made, and that will not repeat itself. The team can come together, decide on how to avoid the recurrence of such. You speak about it, but you'd have resolved it temporarily first, but you speak about it as a team and adapt a new way of working to avoid such. So you need to work hand in hand. So that's what, the values of Scrum is about. And then the Scrum team, at the start I was talking about, this is just us, right? So we have the Scrum Master as the PO and the development team. Like I said, we don't call it development team anymore anyways. We call them just developers, right? But it's okay to use the word development team. Nobody's going to chastise you on that, okay? So now what are ceremonies itself? So for me, I'm already running 5 minutes behind time, but we will get to where we're going to. So what are ceremonies itself? I like when the Joey says, I think he mentioned it yesterday to tell you guys, ceremony is not oh and bell. When you hear the word ceremony, meetings, events, they are all saying the same thing. When you say ceremony, it's like more like a ritual that you have to do, the meetings you have to do to achieve that goal the team is trying to work on at the end of the day. So in simple terms, they are just meetings specifically organized to ensure that the team is in sync and are able to develop their products, right? So it helps the team work in a structured manner. You can never overemphasize structure when it comes to Scrum ceremonies. When you do all these ceremonies, because let me just tell you guys, one of the challenges you're going to face is people finding values in the ceremony. So how do you make your team find values in the ceremonies? Those are the kind of things you need to know quickly. How do you make your team find value in ceremonies? And this can go to probably even Scrum Masters. You need to make sure your team are always, finding value to things. And in all as a team, even team members, the dev guys and all that. Please, as I'm saying all this, please note that your Scrum Master is not your senior or junior on this call. Your PO, they are not your senior or junior on this call, right? And the dev team, you guys, because you're the one doing the work or something, you're also not the senior of anybody. There's no hierarchy in Scrum. Everyone is equal, right? But you need to be very, very respectful to everyone. Like, very respectful. Yeah, you can be chill, but always remember that professional side of things. You need to be very respectful, okay? And when we're trying to talk, let's always try to make sure we're Nigerians, we are very strong people, right? We even have some other cultures here. Sometimes I'm sure we've had Indian guys like that. Naturally, this side of people were a bit strong. We come out a bit stronger than, the regular people. But because of that strength, don't let it affect your tone of work. You think how I'm talking is how I'll talk in work. I talk, I'm more subtle, don't mind me. That's just on a lighter note. So you make sure that you're coming across within your team in a more very easy way so that people can trust you and work with you as you go, right? So the Scrum team, they get work done in a structured manner and it helps them set expectation, empower the team to collaborate effectively and ultimately drive results, right? Then the Scrum ceremonies are done within the context of a sprint. We've explained what a sprint is, right? The period of time that you're going to get the work done. usually 2 weeks. Okay, so why do we do these ceremonies? I virtually mentioned that empower the team to collaborate effectively, help them set expectation, help the team to synchronize, help the team to carry out work in a structured manner. Those are all the ways. It also steers the team towards a successful result, just like when we quote, he who fails to plan plans to fail. If you plan yourself very well, you're going through all these ceremonies, trust me, as a team, you'll be able to effectively carry out the project you want to work on and deliver good increments, quality increments that will be valuable to the customer. If you do an increment that is not valuable, it is not good enough. Every increment you do has to add value to the customer, right? Okay, so the ceremonies. In Scrum, okay, let me take a step back. On the Scrum guide, there are 5 ceremonies, and the 5 ceremonies are, as stated, the sprint planning, the daily stand-up, the sprint. I didn't say sprint refinement, the sprint review, and the retrospective, right? Now, but the major events are the sprint planning, the daily stand-up. I'm skipping the one in the middle, the sprint review, and the retrospective. We're going to use a bit of a journey to explain this so that it will stick, right? Starting from the start and what closes all this ceremony within the 2 weeks. All these things have to happen within 2 weeks, right? So the major ceremonies is worthy to just note that the major ceremonies are 4, which is the sprint planning, daily stand-up, sprint review, and retrospective. But with time, Scrum teams have realized the importance of sprint refinement. So ideally, we have 5 ceremonies. But officially, we have 4 ceremonies. In the Scrum guide, we also have 5, but they named it as just the sprint, right? But the sprint planning, daily stand-up, or called daily Scrum, right? The sprint planning, daily stand-up, sprint review, and retrospective are the main, but we're going to be talking about this 5, right? And like I said, I'm going to make it a story so that we can have an understanding. Now, the participants of all these ceremonies, because as we go, I won't be dwelling on the participants. We're going to run through all those aspects. So the participants are the PO, the Scrum Masters, and the developers. We've spoken about this over and over. And they are the participants in everything. Everything. If you're doing your sprint planning, we need these 3 guys. If you're doing your daily stand-up, we need these 3 guys. If you're doing your refinement, your review, and your retrospective, we need these 3 guys. But however, in the sprint review, there's a bit of a spice, which is the stakeholders. The stakeholders can be the customer. It can be, not when I mean customers now, it might not be the direct customer that you're thinking about, right? It can be management, right? If a customer out there gives us a project, most likely might not even be the customer that will be facing when it comes to the sprint review. But we just call them customers within the organization because they are the people that you're reverting to, that are the face of the customer in the organization. But in all, let's just use the umbrella word for them as stakeholders, right? So your stakeholders, in this case, your management can be, it can be even your chapter leads, it can be your managers, it depends, right? But there are stakeholders that will come and give a feedback of that increment that is of value to the customer that you have done. You come give them a feedback and they can tell you thumbs up or give you some how will I use the word, like this constructive criticism of the work. They will in Scrum hardly, except if the organization is not very cultured, but you not see a manager think something to your face and tell you what's this BS or something. No, we don't work that way in Scrum. Scrum is very sweet. So, but the stakeholder will just constructively tell you, okay, this and this, take this back, take this back, take this back. Okay, let's go back to our building. I'm using our building because we can resonate to it. So let's say we finish building all the whole houses, and then we want to start the painting side of things, and then we paint the first house pure white. And then the customer sees the first one and says, pure white. At the end of that 2-week sprint, maybe somewhere towards the end of the project, though, at the end of the 2-week sprint, we now tell the customer, okay, so we've painted the first house, we painted it white, blah, 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 blah. Trust me, in the planning at the start, the customer told us he wanted it white. But the moment he saw the white, he didn't want that type of white. And you know, there are 1 million shades of white. He will now tell you he wants off-white, you know, tilting towards cream, right? But because he has seen it with just one house, all we need to do is make adjustments. We're not going to be wasting a whole lot of money. If we have painted the whole 20, that's when we'll say, oh my God. But just one, all we need to do is just scrape a bit, or, you know, whatever it is, and paint it cream. By this end of the, you know, following iteration, by the time we show the customer will give us a thumbs up that, yes, this is what I was talking about. So we quickly adapted to that situation, changed it, and we're able to move forward with it as a team. So that's the whole idea of going for sprint review. So let me start again and give us the journey. So by the time we get to the ceremonies, we just breeze through it. So this is the ceremony. So the sprint planning, like I said, the participant is the PO, the Scrum Master, and the developers. And the duration is usually 4 hours within a 2-week sprint. Now, the reason they set this 4 hours before is because of this sprint refinement that does not exist. So that cost us to say 4 hours within a 2-week sprint. But usually, if you've gotten this right, this refinement, if you've gotten it right in the first place, you will not need 4 hours to plan your sprint. You might be using 1 hour. Worst case, worst 2 hours to plan your sprint. But let me just prepare your mind, because you guys are newbies. On your first sprint planning, you might use more than these 2 hours because you just be rigmaroling because you're just learning. But with time, when your team is solid, you use way lesser time to plan your sprint, right? Okay, so I will stick to, you know, what the guide tells us, that is 4 hours within a 2-week sprint. But usually you won't use 4 hours, okay? So sprint planning is also the first ceremony at the start of the sprint. When you start the sprint, say you want to start a sprint now, your 2 weeks have started today. You want to start a sprint. The first ceremony you do is your sprint planning. You can't jump into a sprint without planning for it, right? So you sit, you plan your sprint. Once the sprint is planned properly, remember the picture, you know, that had the ask from the product owner and tells the team. There was one there that was a product backlog. So those product backlog is everything we think we want to do. So all those everything we think we want to do, we take some stories there that we want to work on for the sprint. So everything we think we want to do is the whole estate, right? As we are writing more stories on the estate, that's everything we think we want to do, which is the product backlog. But the moment we want to start sprint, we will make a decision that we want to do the first 2 houses. So those first 2 houses, what do we want to do on the first 2 houses? Are we doing just the foundation? In the 2-week sprint, we will make those decisions during this sprint planning. We'll plan, okay, this is what we want to do. We'll do this one, we'll do that one. We'll just raise these 2 and put them, do only the foundation and start the brickwork. We won't even take it to lintel, we'll just carve out the brickwork. That's what we want to do in the 2-week sprint. So we'll take 2-week sprints and make that decision during the stand-up, during the sprint planning. So the moment we make this decision and now decide to commit it into sprint, that's what we want to work on, it automatically turns into our sprint backlog, right? I will tell us product backlog, sprint backlog, and refinement, and increments rather. So it immediately turns into our sprint backlog. So that's where this word sprint planning comes from. Planning the sprint. Okay. So it's the first ceremony, like I said, where you sit down and plan for the 2 weeks that you want to do. You have a lot of things that we want to work on. You pick a few that we want to do and take it into sprints. That's sprint planning for you. So the moment we take it into sprint, we start sprints. We started sprints, okay? So when we started sprint, every day of sprint, we need to have a 15-minute catch-up, which is this 15 minutes every day of the sprint. We'll do a 15-minute catch-up just to synchronize within team members. Okay, what do we want to do? What is this thing that we want to do? What do we want to achieve in this day? Remember, it's daily stand-up. There are these 3 questions that come once it comes to daily stand-up. What did you do yesterday? What did you do today? And if you had any impediment. When I mean impediment, blockers, or any issue that will not make you do a work, right? what must have happened? Omonile came. Omonile came to disrupt us. Or the tractor that was supposed to bring the sand did not bring the sand or something. Those are the things that we can call impediments, when it comes to the house we're building. I'm using the house, like I said, so we can resonate and understand what I'm trying to say. So if the person, remember that we've agreed I want to do the 2 foundations in that 2 weeks. So if I'm the builder now and I want to explain what I've done in the stand-up. Okay, hi, good morning, everyone. So yesterday I was able to do the foundation for the 2 plots that we decided on. That's the plot 1 and plot 3, or whatever it is, or let's even keep it simple, plot 1 and plot 2. I've done the foundation of the plot 1 and plot 2, but at the edge of the foundation, there's the iron that I was expecting for them to give us, but it was not delivered on time. So I've not been able to fix the iron. However, I have reached out to the iron guys to bring the iron for us to, do. At that case, as a Scrum Master, you don't need to worry too much because he has already told you that he has reached out to those people. So you can just quietly reach out to the iron guy just for a chase-up, right? So it's not an impediment you need to resolve because it's even already resolving it, which makes a very good team member. But I've already told you that, okay, I've done the 2 plots. And then when I finish saying that, I will now tell you that today, my focus is to start carving the blocks on top. Yes, the blocks are ready and available. So today, I'll just put the blocks and raise it only to 2 blocks, just round on each of what we have done. Shikina, I've done my explanation as to what I want to do. So I hope what I'm trying to explain is clear. So I just explained what I did yesterday. I explained what I did today, and I told you what is impeding me. I'm waiting for some irons from the delivery guy, which he has promised to bring by 8 a.m. today or by 9 a.m. today, whatever it is. That's how a daily stand-up should go. So if I'm in my office, I want to do a daily stand-up. Oh, I've been able to work on this. I've been able to work on this. Like I said yesterday, I was going to work on this these days. I have done this these days, and I was able to do it. I don't have any impediments at the time, but my focus on today is to do that. So that's the whole idea of daily stand-up. It's just a quick talk. And all this talk I'm saying it within a minute, worst case 2 minutes, to explain what I've done yesterday, today, and what if I have any impediments. The reason is, remember that we have 10 in the team. 2 is Scrum Master and the PO. The Scrum Master and the PO will not be really saying, oh, I've done this, I've not done this, I've not done this. But for the intent of the internship, we want Scrum Masters to say what they are doing, just for them to have a feel of what is done. But ideally, a Scrum Master does not need to give that report because the Scrum Master is actually the one listening to that report alongside with the PO to listen. And the whole team members are also listening to it because as that guy is doing his own lifting of this, the architect within the team is doing his own design of the something aspect of the team, which is going to give his own report. Oh, I've been able to design the face of the this or that. So everybody is working hand in hand within the team. So the design guy is also listening to the guy doing the foundation to say, okay, he has done the foundation. Okay, me, I need to design this side now. Whatever it is, we're just working hand in hand. So everybody needs to hear it. But the PO and the SMs are not really going to be giving reports of their day-to-day. It's the developers that are going to be giving their reports of their day-to-day, what they did yesterday, what they did today, and what they intend to do. And if they have any impediment. So that's that for daily stand-up. And it's usually 15 minutes. I also tell people to be very considerate when they are doing stand-up. Some people get carried away and talk for 5 minutes. As a Scrum Master, you should have, subtle way of cutting them off for them to come back to reality that it's just a stand-up, just a 2 minutes check-in. But if they have a lot of things they want to spill out, okay, how about we take this outside of this call? Because remember, we're doing 15 minutes. 8 other people need to talk. So if one person has taken 5 minutes, is it the 8 people that you want them to share 10 minutes? And remember that even that 15 minutes, the first 1 minute, all of you are still greeting yourself. Hello, everyone. Remember when Juliet started the call? We started with hello, everyone. And we're supposed to start this call by 8 o'clock. You see that we didn't start by 8 o'clock. We started by 8:05. The same thing will happen during your stand-up. I'm not saying you should start your stand-up by 8:05. If your stand-up is 9 a.m., for example, or 8 a.m., for example, let's just stick with 8 like we did today. By 8:01, you should have started fully because you're starting 8 on the dot. But that 8 on the dot, you're just cheering people. Hi, everyone. You okay? How was your night? You good? Okay, let's delve in. You start immediately. No need of wasting time. 30 seconds, 1 minute. You exchange pleasantries. If there's any joke you can throw into the house, you throw the joke. And, I'll give an example today. For example, a guy asked me, "Oh, how are you today?" I asked how he was like, "Oh, that he's so upset and that somebody spilled something around him." And I was like, but me, I'd already said I'm excellent. He was like, "Whoa, you are excellent. How do you do it that you're always excellent and cheerful?" That he was upset. Okay, so it was two of us that joined the call first. And we did all this chat in like 30 seconds. So by the time the other guy was joining the call, and the other guys, as they were just joining in, guess the first thing we just started attacking him, "How was your day?" And the guy was like, "Okay, I'm sure Ola is excellent. What are you?" And the guy said he's very angry. And then the third guy now said, "You know what? I'm in the middle." The fourth guy came and said, "No, I'm leaning towards the angry guy because I'm angry because of this kind of work." And we did all this thing I'm saying that sounds long. We did all this within a minute because by 10:01 we had started the real call, right? So there should be that collaboration and funny thing within the team. So by the time we started the call, one other person jumped on the call. So when we finished the whole call, when we wanted to say bye, the very angry guy said, hold on a minute. Okay, you skipped telling us how angry or happy you are today. What are you? All of us just busted into laugh. This thing I'm saying might not sound interesting to you because you don't understand, where I'm coming from. But, we have spoken about it at the start. We've spoken about real work. We've aligned our day and we're about to go. And somebody just pauses and, just says everybody, best speaker, and started laughing. It came up very funny, like, so you still remember this thing that we just, played with at the start. So you must put your team to that, but you still need to remain focused because I still took out the main thing we're supposed to do for the meeting. Some people get carried away and first use 5 minutes to greet. You don't do all that. I'm explaining all these things to you so that you can understand how to apply it to your team. So once you have a question,
Please.
okay. Hope it's just one person.
Okay. Since for the daily stand-up, the development team, are the only people for the talk. Then the Scrum Master officiating, if I can use that word. Then what would the PO be doing in that meeting?
Okay, thank you for the question. So the PO is the one that has told you to go and do this and that and that. So when you're giving feedback of what you're doing, the PO is listening. When you're giving feedback in anything, you need somebody a bit high ranked than you. Don't take my word literally because in a Scrum team we're all the same, right? But there's a bit of seniority when it comes to the PO because the PO is the eyes of the vision rather of the team. They are the ones that have that direct contact with the sponsors, the customers, the stakeholders. Doesn't mean the other team members might not have, one-on-ones and everything with the stakeholders. But the PO is the person we're getting the information from that do this, do that, do that. So it's more like the person that sent you a message right now. So that person that sent you a message wants to listen to you on what you have done so far. Now, some people will tell you a PO might actually not be needed in the team. They are because they are part of the team. They are part of that team. So they're just listening. But if the PO does not even have to say anything. The PO does not need to say, but once in a while, the PO can engage the person immediately. So you speak within 1 minute, you've done this and that. The PO can just engage you immediately that, oh, okay, how about you reach out to maybe a suggestion? Maybe the person say, okay, I have an impediment on this. I've tried to reach out to Tunji, but Tunji told me that he wasn't the best person, and he's usually the right person that we speak to. The PO can just chip in that. So, oh, okay, how about you reach out to Damisola. Damisola is the best person to respond to this on that. I'll also send a message to Damisola. So the POs are just there because they are in that journey. They are part of the team. They are part of these guys that are going to deliver that thing at the end of the day. So the PO just listens in, same as the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is facilitating the call. But guess what? Sometimes, let me now bust your bubble. For me, I'm only there to ensure that call is happening. I only join the call to ensure it is happening. But most times, it's my developer that share their screen themselves. Like in all my teams, maybe I might share maybe only one screen. The remaining will share the screen themselves. And then they're handing over. Once we do the only thing I make sure is they don't get carried away doing that morning. Hi everyone, blah blah blah. So once we do the hi everyone, I say, okay, so I'm happy for us to commence. Over to you, Tona. So Tona is maybe the dev or the whatever lead team lead or something. Tona shares the screen. On some days that we don't even want Tona to share screen, it might be Linda that is sharing screen, it might be Constance that is sharing screen, it might be anybody, right? Because they're the ones having the main conversation. Only these guys do the main conversation. These two guys are just there to juggle a bit, and even the developers are okay to ask questions too. Maybe somebody says something that they're not okay with, they can ask a question or tell you, oh, like that instance I said, the PO finally referred somebody. It could be the developer. Oh, this happened to me 2 weeks ago. I was able to reach out to Adiola, and Adiola was the one that resolved it for me. So just reach Adiola in so team. She's gonna help you out or something. Or you have an IT issue. Oh, I reached out to IT and they were able to resolve it for me. So that person will not waste time in a rabbit hole trying to fish out a solution where the solution is just IT to fish it out. So that's why anybody can make a comment. But the PO, the Scrum Masters, they are part of the team. That's why they are listening in. These developers are the one having that main engagement because they're the ones that actually did the work. But everybody, every role is very important when it comes to these calls. I hope it answers your question, yeah? I don't know who spoke. I hope it answers your question. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. I was almost going to take silence as a yes, but it's fine. Thank you. All right, so we're jumping to the sprint review. I'm skipping the refinement. So we're jumping to the sprint review. So remember I told you that now there's an additional participant, which is the stakeholders. The stakeholders can be subject matter experts, they can be your team leads, they can be your managers, they can be anything, but your customers in general, right? So these stakeholders will be on a call while these three guys tell them this is the increment we've done. Oh, we've been able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, okay, great. And then we showcase those things we've done. The showcasing part of it is you're showing it. Say, for example, we're building the website. You share your screen and you're building and showing, exactly what you've done. We've done this, we've done that. Oh, this is now clickable, this is not clickable, this is a functional requirement that we've done, this is this one that we've not done, this is that one, you explain yourself. So these guys are taking it in, the stakeholders, and are like, oh, okay, this is very, very well cut out work drawing. But how about we add this something or remove this something, or we do, these guys will give you constructive feedback, good, bad, medium, it doesn't really matter, but they'll give you constructive feedback, all right? So that's the idea of sprint review, just like the word, they are reviewing what you've done in those 2 weeks. So it happens 2 hours within a 2-week sprint. So for a team that has a 4-week sprint, it will likely be a 4 hours thing, but it doesn't really matter. You can do it lesser. All these timings are just a guide. It doesn't mean, tidondo, we must use 2 hours because we're doing a 4-week sprint. No. It depends on but it doesn't also mean that you should go and exceed time. These are guidelines. So if a daily stand-up is 15 minutes and the team are very quick to give a feedback on a certain day and they are done in 9 minutes, you end the call because you try not to avoid any time wasting, right? So that's that. But here, these guys, you have deep discussions, you show them what you've done, they give you a feedback, they give you the thumbs up, even if it's a thumbs down, it doesn't really matter. It's a thick thing. They'll tell you, okay. But usually you might not even get a thumbs down. It'll just be, oh, add this, remove this, just they are the main guys, right? So they are telling you what you should do, right? And then we go to the retrospective. So the retrospective is now like, okay, we've done everything we want to do within the sprint. So it's time to reflect on all what we've done, right? Retrospective. You are reflecting on the past and how to improve your future as a team. That's what retrospective is about. So retrospective is usually a bit chill at the start, and then when you start the retrospective itself, you dig deep into exactly what has moved your team forward during the course of the sprint, or what has pulled you guys down, right? So you need to be able to speak truly. You remember the for CC, I spoke about focus, openness, commitment, and all that, right? For the Scrum values. If you don't have the Scrum values, your retrospective will not work well, because people will not tell you the truth. People will be hiding. People will not be committed enough to even want to speak properly. People will want to remain anonymous. People will not. You need to steer your team as a whole to the right direction, where everybody is relaxed and are able to speak. So that's why usually in a retrospective, we start with a bit of fun games, truths and a lie. What's your best trip that you've ever taken? If you want to take a vacation spot, what will it be? What's your favorite food, your favorite color or something? If your sprint can be described as a car, what car will it be? Anything. So we just use that one to break the ice, because trust me, we've been working for 2 weeks and we just finished with these bad guys, right? So they're not bad guys. This is just me being exaggerating. So we just finished with these guys that can shred us or do anything. But in Scrum, like I said, it's a bit chill. They're not going to really shred you. But no matter what it is, when you're talking to your superiors at work, there's this bit of tension when you're going. There's no how. No matter how ninja turtle you are, there will just be, that slight, oh, you want to, speak to your stakeholders on this. You hope they accept it, because we all want to excel, we all want to grow good. So there's a bit of tension a bit after all this. So when you come to retrospective, it's supposed to be a chill moment. Now, when you do that, you can even play games. But I always tell people not to focus. Like me, I try not to lose guard, because my team, they like to play games sometimes. Sometimes it might just even be a bit chill, but most times, if it's an interesting game, everybody wants to, really play and have fun and all that. So, but just try and make sure there's timing to everything. Like we use the first half an hour, maybe just 5 minutes or 10 minutes for icebreakers, then 20 minutes we'll play a proper game, any type of game we want to play. And then even sometimes, if we don't even have any game we want to play, we'll just log into, I didn't even know about these dailies in New York Times. There are lots of fun games there. We'll just play a game as a team, and then you say everybody's screaming, no, skirt, no, this, anything. Because you're chill. You have gone through the whole sprint, so you chill. But when it's getting to 1 minute to the end of the game, as a Scrum Master that you're facilitating these things, you need to let them know, okay, we have 2 more minutes for the games. Oh, okay. Then you use your last 1 hour to really, really, really dig deep into what has propelled your team well, what didn't really go well during the course of it. So sometimes during the sprint, there might be less communication. It might be that there was an impediment that held the whole team. So remember the iron guys. Let that iron guy now be one Baba Sarumi that is very wicked, that will tell you that I'm already on Third Milan Bridge and they've not come at all. Or that they'll tell you that, let me even use London. I'm in Peckham, I'm already on my way, or I'm somewhere, and they will never show up, right? The reason I keep using Nigeria is to an extent, here they will find you. But in Nigeria, the Baba Sarumi can go and escape like that and not come to you guys for the next 1 week. So anything that is a showstopper, it can hold you guys. Is there a question?
Yeah,
Yes, Olawumi, Adaeze has a hand up.
yeah. Sorry, I understood that, but I don't understand the retrospective.
Okay,
Is
it's
it
fine.
all about coming together to talk as in make just talk gist, if I should use that word? Yeah.
I will not call it gisting, right? But
Nothing serious concerning the work.
Oh, that's why I said the first 30 minutes can be a chill moment where you guys can be on serious, right? But you see that last 1 hour, you need to talk deeply as to what went well during the course of the sprint,
Oh, okay.
or what that did not go well during the course of the sprint, things that probably needs improvement, and then you take actions from it, right? So during the course of the sprint, which was where I was actually explaining at the time you asked the question, is, for example, there are impediments that need to be resolved. and we were not able to resolve it. No matter how we tried, it was a showstopper. Our leads know about it, our managers know about it, but it was very difficult. Communication was a bit slow during the course of the sprint, or the work was bigger than we expected. Maybe we picked that we want to do this, and we thought that we can finish it within 2 weeks. We broke down the story, but by the time we started, we realized that this is a killer. There might be struggles during the course of the sprint. It might be that there's an unavailability of a technical know-how that we did not foresee. It can be anything that could impede us. We'll discuss all those in that last 1 hour, where we discuss the main issues within retrospective. Remember that retrospective is about reflecting about the past 2 weeks. Now, I'm not saying the past 10 weeks or so. No, that sprint you just finished. You're reflecting about that sprint you just finished and how to improve your future as a team. So that's retrospective. So I will now jump to refinement back. I will still take the whole story, the journey. Now, all these things I mentioned, that's the sprint planning, the daily stand-up, the review, and the retrospective, were done during the course of the sprint. Now, the refinement is not for that sprint. The refinement is for the next sprint. It's like saying you want to plan ahead for the next sprint. That's what refinement is about. I will only use it that way so that you can understand. Refinement is like those product backlog items at the start, how you want to process it, add some details, put some descriptions, resize it, make sure that you have an understanding of what you want to work on for that following sprint. You sit down and refine your stories as against next sprint. Like I said, you might not be able to sponge in everything, but just try and understand the picture. During the course of the sprint, we start the sprint with the sprint planning. We plan and then we start our sprint. But before this sprint planning, this thing would have happened, which is the refinement. It would have happened sometime, like a week even before then, or a couple of days before we even start the new sprint. You will sit down and decide on those things we want to take up for the sprint. So when we decide those things, we'll now bring those things to the sprint planning and plan it very well, finish grinding these refinements that we finished, right? So the sprint planning is, you sit together, everybody sits and lay out the work we want to do. That's the sprint planning. But the refinement, pre this planning of the work we want to do, we would have picked the things we think we want to work on, check the sizing, be sure we can work on it for the sprint. The POs will give us the acts. It's like, in simple terms, it's like preparing before the D-Day, right? You're doing this as against the following sprint. So when you plan your refinement, maybe somewhere in the middle of a previous sprint, and then you start the planning proper at the start of the sprint. So this is the first. You see why people don't say this is an actual ceremony? Because it doesn't really happen during the course of the sprint. It will happen before the sprint starts. But guess what? It will happen during the course of the sprint, even for the next sprint. But it's not really part of that sprint. You're planning for the future. You're planning ahead. So it's not really work for that sprint. But you're just refining your story, making sure that you have a clear-cut understanding of the processes and the things you want to do for the following sprint, size it properly, make sure the axe is right, make sure the product owner gives us a priority, we'll prioritize it, we'll make sure that, okay, this is what we want to work on. So we set it aside. And then when we want to now start sprint, we'll bring those things in. Okay, so these are the things we want to work on. We'll now sit down and chew it properly. So you see where that extra 2 hours came in from here, because it's not ideally. So some people combine these two ceremonies. But the reason you don't combine the two ceremonies is this might need a type of work that you need to now go get more details and everything, which you cannot be doing that during sprint planning. If you go get more details, this, you might not be able to start sprint at the right time. But if you do this it's like preparing before the D-Day. That's just how it is. It's like on your, good example, on your wedding day. Before the wedding day, you've met the wedding planner, you've planned everything you want to do. So on the wedding day, they start executing the things they want to do. So you're doing that planning finally. It's on that wedding day or a night to the wedding day that they start doing your decoration. On the wedding day, they'll bring the cake. On the wedding day, they'll bring the food. They will not cook your jollof rice the day before now. It's on this refinement that would have been grinding all the jollof. But on the main day, that we are planning, we use it to now use on that main day is when everything will now, okay, these are the things we are taking to the hall for the venue. Oh yeah, let's go. Bam, we'll now start what we are going to do. So that's how it feels like. It's like pre-planning before the main planning. As we are going, we'll get to understand better by the time you do these activities. And guess what? Tomorrow, we'll be doing a workshop on all this, my plenty, jargons I'm saying. We'll do a workshop and bring it home a bit for you to have a clear understanding. In fact, that's why you're now saying, oh, okay, this is what you meant, this is what you meant, this is what you meant. But grab as much as you can. And this recording will be shared with you today so that you can probably just listen in again and have a good understanding of what it is. So the sprint planning is done outside of the sprint for the next sprint. So you start the ceremonies with a refinement before you start the sprint. But the actual ceremony for the sprint starts with a sprint planning. So you sit down, plan your sprint, then you start sprint. Then you start doing daily stand-ups, which is just simple words, daily check-in. Just going, checking, okay, what are we doing? We're doing this, and this is what we'll be doing today. I did ABC yesterday. I'll be doing EFG today. Very simple. I'll be doing this one today. That one today. Okay, I don't have any impediments. That's fine. So if I'm reporting, I've done ABC, I'm doing this thing. Today, I'll be doing DEF, and I don't have any impediments. Well, I'm done within a minute. So that's daily check-ins. Then we'll do this every day of the sprint to the last day of the sprint. So this sprint review is done on the last day of the sprint. It's done on the last day of the sprint. You discuss with your stakeholders, they give you the thumbs up. Usually in the ideal world, you do this like in the morning, late morning or early afternoon, you now sit down and do your retrospective. So this happens at the start of the sprint, day one of sprint. Let's assume we're using a 10 working days, which is 2-week sprint. So day one of sprint, day one, we'll do sprint planning. Day 2 of sprint, we'll do daily stand-up. Day 3, we'll do daily stand-up. Day 4, we'll do daily stand-up. Day 5, we'll do daily stand-up. Day 6, we'll do daily stand-up. Then somewhere, somehow within that sprint, we'll do a sprint refinement as against next sprint. Are you guys with me? We'll do a sprint refinement, but it's not affecting our everyday life. But we just need to find a suitable 1 or 2 hours to plan for the next sprint. So that's where sprint planning comes in. And then we'll do daily stand-up again. We'll do daily stand-up again on day 6. We'll do daily stand-up again on day 7. We'll do daily stand-up on day 8. We'll do daily stand-up on day 9. Then on day 10, we don't need to do daily stand-up because we'll be doing sprint review with the bad guys, right? They're not bad guys. Don't mind me. It's too much action for him. So we'll do sprint review with the guys that they will just give us, feedback on what we've done, the increments and everything. And then we'll go and take a break. Usually, we don't advise people to immediately start your retrospective because this is on day 10. So on day 10 morning, we do this. On day 10, early afternoon, late morning, we'll do this. Because on day 11, we're starting sprint planning again.
Hi again, allow me. Adaise has a hand up for you.
Yeah, so the sprint refinement, yeah?
Yeah.
You said it's done outside of the sprint before you start the sprint. Yeah, before you start the sprint ceremony. Do you call it sprint ceremonies or just the ceremonies?
That's what I'm saying, like, these are all sprint ceremonies.
Okay, sprint ceremonies.
But
So
remember,
sprint refinement is not part of the sprint ceremony.
It's not part of the sprint.
Okay, you just put it here.
Yes, it's not part of the sprint in itself, but it happens during the course of the sprint as against the next sprint.
All right, thank you.
All right. These are the 4 things that happen within a sprint. Sprint planning, daily stand-up, sprint review, and retrospective.
The retrospective comes last.
Yes. This happens on day 1. This happens on day 2 to day 9. The refinement, you can do it anytime somewhere in between because you're doing it as against the next sprint. So anytime, doesn't have to be morning, can just be 2 to 3 p.m. on the Tuesday before the end of the sprint. The team will just agree on their ways of working. Let's have a quick refinement just to catch up so that we know what we're doing next sprint. So that this sprint planning will not be too chaotic for you guys on day 1 of sprint. Because here you are grinding that story, you are refining that story, just like the way the word is. You are adding flesh to the things you want to do. You are doing description. You are sizing it. You're just going to that your product backlog to pick up all the things you want to do that have priority by this guy that told us that we want to do it. So I'm stepping back again, because after this, the remaining slides I run through. So you just be picking what you can, so that we can finish almost on time, right? So remember the sprint planning, day 1, the daily stand-up, day 2 to day 9. The sprint planning can come in any day you guys agree within yourself, maybe day 5, day 6, day 7. You can just do it, but it's against next sprint. It's not within this sprint. Then the sprint review happens on day 10, which you probably do in the early hours of the day, right? And the retrospective later in the day on the same day 10. So these 2 ceremonies happen in the same day, because you have finished review with your guys, and then you now come back and retrospect on all these other ones, right? Your retrospective is just to reflect what we did well, what we didn't do well. Okay, I hope it's all clear. So we are moving forward to all the things that must happen. Remember, I told you, make sure that you're working within time, always time box. Make sure that don't do over familiarity. Everything you do must be purpose driven. Don't just say you want to do a ceremony. There's no purpose, because you say, oh, it's every day now. Your team will get bored in no time, right? No, you need to always plan for it. Okay, well, what are we looking at? If possible, send out some agendas. I can't do a retrospective without an agenda, because there are some days we do icebreaker and game, and then the retrospective in itself. And there are some days it will just be icebreaker straight to the retrospective, depending on how tired we are or something. So sometimes we'll be too exhausted. Then some days we don't even do the retrospective this way. We'll just go in 1 hour and do a deep dive. And then from there, everybody carry their bag. Let's meet at these joints. And we'll go to the Crazy Fish or what's the name of that place? Different places. You can go sit down, eat your fish, we'll gist, we'll play, relax. We'll meet ourselves again on Monday morning and start. Anything you do, you have to have acceptance within the team. You need to prepare for everything you're doing, and everything must be of value. Okay, I told you the subsequent slides will be running through. Okay, we have 10 minutes. So sprint planning, we've already said it is the first event, and it determines that product backlog that everybody wants to work on at the initial stage, and then you complete them, and you can now start sprint. You pick from your product backlog, you commit them into sprint, which converts to your sprint backlog, and then increment. Let me just take a step back. Those 3 things I've been using interchangeably are called Scrum artifacts. I'm going to try to explain within a minute. Even if you don't get it, another day, ask me again. Don't ask me today for reasons because of time. But another day, ask me again. I will put it in a layman language. Product backlog, sprint backlog, and increment. I know I've explained it today, but I just want to re-explain for it to sink in. Your product backlog, in simple terms, everything you think you want to do. And what you get out of that product backlog is the product backlog in itself, right? So you make sure you get everything you think you want to do. Your sprint backlog is from those everything we think we want to do. We want to pick maybe 3, 4, 5, 10 items that we want to work on within this 2-week sprint. It is called a sprint backlog. But the moment you start sprint, that sprint backlog changes to your sprint goal. Remember, the first one is product backlog. Product backlog is all the things we think we want to achieve that the PO has told us. They say we want to build a house. So if you want to build a house now, you do electricity, you do linting, you do roofing, you do everything. You can just be dumping them there, right? You just be dumping them into the priority. But when we want to start the work, if you want to build a house, you can't go and say the first thing we want to do is electricity, right? We won't do that. We'll start with things like the design, then we move into the planning, the foundation, the whatever like that. So we do it step by step, which the PO will guide you. Don't be afraid. You hold the jacket of your PO. The PO will guide you. You can't say, okay, because you don't know how to build a house, cannot. The PO will guide you. That's why we're working as a team. You're seeing the importance of the PO. The PO will really want to now tell you this is the priority. So our first set of priority is to make sure the design is out. Okay, so who and who How are we doing the design? Okay, let's break it into smaller chunks. Let's start with the design of the side, design of this one, design of this one, design of this one, like that. So you work together as a team to achieve this, right? That's the whole idea of product backlog. And what you achieve from a product backlog, like I said, is your product goal. Then when you pick those things out of it that you want to work on within the sprint, it becomes a sprint backlog. And what you achieve there is your sprint goal, right? Then after you have now worked in the 2-week sprint, you now achieve what we call an increment, which is that thing of value that you want to give to the customer. So if you want to build a house and you've done the design, you've achieved something. The customer is good for it, so that's an increment. The next thing we do the foundation, we've achieved something. Next thing we raise the house, we've achieved something. Next thing we put the roof in, we've achieved something. All those things, you see that we are putting them together to form the house. The foundation alone can never be the house. Even when you raise it up to the roof, it cannot be the house. A house that doesn't have a window, that doesn't have electricity, that is not painted, you understand? All the things will come together to now be of value for us to make that house a whole. That is exactly what we are doing in this whole sprint. So we are doing the product backlog, all the things you want to do, the sprint backlog, the things we want to do within these 2 weeks. And then the increment, that little quality thing that we have achieved that is usable and good for the customer is of quality. That's what an increment is. Those 3 things I've explained in Scrum is called Scrum artifacts. There are other artifacts. And in increments, you remember I told you the thing you achieve from product backlog, you achieve your product goal. The thing you achieve from the sprint backlog, you achieve your sprint goal. But the thing you achieve from increment is your definition of done. I will not go into that today, or else we'll grow old. Okay, we're done with the sprint backlog. Importance of sprint backlog. It reduces risks of failure, and sprint planning rather. It reduces risks of failure because we have planned. I already told you, if you fail to plan, you have planned already to fail. So we are planning. If risk of failure is reduced, so there's also for us to understand the scope of work we want to deliver within the sprint, right? That's why we do sprint planning. I will go back to the picture. You see the backlog, we do a meeting, and then we get our sprint. This is now what we are taking into sprint, all the tasks that we want to do. Yeah. Okay. So the daily stand-up, this is just exactly what I want. So this, we tell you, it happens 15 minutes every sprint, same place, same time, and facilitated by the Scrum Master. Please note that there's no stampede to say it must be because Scrum Master that must facilitate. The developers with time, at the start, the Scrum Master can start, especially when it's a new team. With time, the developers can take ownership because if as a Scrum Master, if you go on vacation, will the team pause because you're not around? Remember, you're a one-man mopo in the team. Remember, a PO is a one-man mopo. So build your team to be cross-functional, build them to be able to stand alone as a team, with or without the availability of anyone. So that's where we say self-development of the team, right? So you make sure your team is self-developed. So the reason we do same place, same time is already at the back of my head. Like this picture, every 9 o'clock, we're going to do sprint daily stand-up. You can imagine if today they tell me daily stand-up is 8:15, tomorrow is 9:10, next tomorrow is 8:52, next tomorrow is 8. After a while, we will remember when it's daily stand-up. Somebody has to come and call me to say, Hola, it's time for daily stand-up. But if we have a fixed time for that particular thing, every 9 o'clock, we do our daily stand-up. And before you make these decisions, remember you have teams in diaspora. We try to shy away from some timing is like 8 o'clock, because when it's 8 o'clock, it's already their lunch time. In places like India and co, you need to make sure you agree on your ways of working as a team before you decide when you do this timing, right? And then facilitated by Scrum Master or any of the dev guys. Then the 3 focus questions: what you did yesterday, what you did today, and if you have any blockers or impediments. So that's daily stand-up for you. So it's a brief daily meeting. The team will inspect their progress. Remember the I mentioned earlier, transparency, inspection, and adaptation. During daily stand-up, we inspect ourselves, we inspect our work. That's daily stand-up for you. quick explanation, quick exchange of vital information. If I remember, I told you that if the talk is getting too long, you can tell the person that, is it okay for us to move this outside of the call? We call that parking lot. You just move it to the parking lot. So immediately after the call, when you've dismissed the team, you can now tell them, okay, for those of you that wanted to discuss further, it's okay for you to carry on. Or they just jump out of the call and call themselves to trash out what they want to talk about. But you make sure you're very clear, make sure you're as timely as possible. I'm a Scrum Master, but I'm going to exceed time tonight. Apologies ahead, but we'll try and finish very, very quickly. They also identify obstacles that can impact work, which is this impediment. And then the attendees of this meeting is the whole Scrum team. You see that they did not tell you that the attendee is only developer or only PO, is the full squad, right? So importance of daily stand-up, just to inspect ourselves. Everybody's transparent as to what they are doing. There's high level of collaboration when you're doing daily stand-up. You share your progress within the team. Everybody understands what you're committing to. And it also gives peer accountability. Let me give an example. So today, as we are all together, I told you that, okay, tomorrow we're going to have the Scrum workshop and everything. Do you think tomorrow will come and I'll not want that Scrum workshop to happen? Because I've already told you guys, I've committed myself that there's going to be a workshop. Now, yes, there can be issues why something might not happen. Then you can tell your team, but most times when you said it out loud, for your word to be your bond, you want to carry it out. That's what that peer accountability is about. You've told your team that, oh, I did this yesterday, I'm going to do this today. And it also helps you facilitate discussions as Scrum Masters or developers or POs within the team. So somebody tells you that I'm going to do the foundation yesterday. Today, the person comes and says, I wasn't able to do the foundation, I'll do the foundation today. The person comes to the meeting again tomorrow and says, I'll do the foundation today. Even if you are not a Scrum Master or a PO, you, the developer, won't you say, you've been telling us foundation since Monday. Today is Thursday. We're still saying you are doing the foundation with no explanation to a level of what you have done in the foundation. It's different if, oh, I've done this, it just remains a corner where I'll put the iron that we're waiting for Baba Sarumi to bring. You understand? So it just gives accountability, and even for you yourself, you've said it out loud. It's your pride. I've said yesterday that I want to do this. I'll tear pants to make sure I do it. I'll do anything to make sure I do it. So if I don't do it, there will be a concrete reason. And even before that stand-up, to an extent, the people that matter will already know why that thing cannot happen. And they know, like I told you that, for example, if there's an impediment that is holding the whole team hostage, your manager should know, everybody should know why, so that they will not be asking you, why are you guys not moving forward? All these things are mentioned. It's very important for a team. It also helps the team to self-organize and develop themselves. Okay, so sprint review, so we're already on the third one. Sprint review is organized at the end of sprint for constructive comments and feedback from stakeholders. Remember, I already mentioned that. And it provides a place where the Scrum team can present, please note the word present the work that they've completed for the project. So importance of sprint review, provides status update, helps the team, ensure that the right products that fit the customer. You remember that the customer asked for a white building. We painted white, and I said you want off white. You just make sure you don't show it on your face when you're in this sprint review. That's it. In my mind, I might be saying, see this crazy customer, but you just told us you wanted white. But it says off white, it's fine. It's your job. Make sure the customer is happy. So you be as pleasant as you can. Okay, off white. Please, can you be more specific as to the off white? Okay, this. He'll give you the exact shade, and then we'll go and work on that shade, right? And make sure that it's correct. If possible, we can only paint even a little portion during the course of the sprint. There's no harm in extending and showing the customer, this is what we've painted, just this portion. Please verify it's okay, good to go, and it tells you yes, and then you paint it all up. So whatever makes your work easy, it's about, I always tell people, Agile is also about common sense. There's actually the word common sense within Agile, but I hardly say it, but fully, if you're studying the whole of project management, you see where they tell you about common sense and pragmatism when it comes to agility. So there's a bit of common sense when it comes. There's some things if I were the one, I won't go and paint the whole off white again, and then the customer tells you this is not the shade of the off white. No, I'm going to discuss with the customer properly. Please be more specific. Can you give us a sample? Can you give us a this? So he gives us, I paint just a little portion. Show him, is this what we're talking about? Oh yes, this is good. It gives you a thumbs up, you paint the whole thing. So it takes away wasting of time, it takes away repeating errors, because if we paint it again, that's a reoccurrence of an error. So all these things I'm mentioning, I keep telling you, they're very, very important when you're doing things. Apply common sense, then always listen to your team, because if you think you have common sense, other people have common sense too. So you need to bring all those your common senses together to achieve something tangible. So that's why you do your ways of working, amongst other things. Okay. So it helps you inspect your outcome as a sprint, and also that's for sprint review. We're jumping into the retrospective. I told you it's the fun part. That's why we're seeing a lot of fun. So this particular example of retrospective is a hot air balloon, where people are saying, okay, the things that makes us fly, the things that are very sunny, the things that thunderstorm. You know, when you're in the sky now, there's some things that are very crazy that can be happening to you. Letting code fall behind. You see these people, coding is falling behind. There's a conflict of images. There's fragmented this and that. But the things that are lovely for them, defined outcome, the start was early, communication between different task group was top notch, the review of the wireframe was great, you know. Then the things that are pulling them down, lack of cohesion, communication gap, time management, like that. So anything that different designs to retrospective. Please, for this cohort, I want to see interesting retrospective ideas. Let's not just be rigid. The thing that always happens is if you don't plan before the time, you end up using rigid activities for your retrospective. Have fun things for your retrospective. So retrospective is held at the end of each sprint. It's the very last ceremony for the sprint, where the team reflects on their past sprints and identifies ways to improve that sprint, right? So the ceremony helps to find and figure out ways to make things better. And usually we start with an icebreaker, a retro. I have a boring icebreaker I always show here every time. Then it's usually done within, half an hour to 2 hours, depending on how the discussion is, right? So importance of the retro is to inspect your activities, plan for the next sprint, make sure that you evaluate what is working effectively for the team to push the team forward, right? All the things that went well. You need to start, if something went well for you, do you want to stop doing it? No, you need to work on it and even improve on it for it to be more seamless for the team. Make sure you increase quality and effectiveness of work within the team. If you don't reflect on the past, how do you want to build the future? So let's say communication was not good this sprint. Everybody keeps quiet. There's no retrospective. Next sprint again, communication is not good. Next sprint again, your team will just dwindle with no time. But if communication was not good and you all sit together and say, okay, let's improve on our communication. We put Constance in charge of communication for this sprint to help us improve communication. So from time to time during the course of the sprint, Constance will just remind the team, maybe even at the end of this sprint plan and daily stand-up, that, okay guys, remember to reach out to your stakeholders, like that. Just ownership. The team works together before you know. And I always tell people, for example, like if something happens to you today, like for example, the guy that was supposed to put iron in the foundation and he waits till the next daily stand-up to tell us why he did not put iron. No, it's really wrong. But if the guy has told us, like how he did in the meeting, to say, oh, I have reached out, that means he didn't even reach out that morning. When it didn't happen to him yesterday, he reached out to the guy that was supposed to deliver, and the guy gave him a timing that he would deliver at so time, apologized and everything. You need to make sure that your team is very effective. So that's why we do retrospective, to reflect on the past, to work for the future. So in this case, you've already told the team, when anything happens to you, make sure you guys find a solution almost immediately. Some people are like that too. You are building a website or you are doing something and something happens. We had a stand-up 9 o'clock, for example. Then by 11 o'clock, maybe something is impeding you or you're waiting for a data for the website or something, and the person will not tell anybody and wait till the next stand-up, which is tomorrow, to now be telling us the following 9 a.m. again that he has an impediment. We might not know that impediment happened at 11 a.m., but is it good for the team? Is that person committed to the progress of the team? That's wastage of almost a full day, if not a full day. So you need to have this retrospective, have the true bitter conversations on how to move the team forward. So that's the idea of retrospective. So, it also allows team to freely share their opinion. In retrospective, it's okay for people to be anonymous, but if you build a very good conscious team, you don't need to be anonymous. You can always say your onions as it is. But even if you want to tell somebody the person did not do well, maybe the guy that probably, kept his impediment to himself to the next day. If you want to tell the person, you don't say, why did you keep your impediments to the next day? Don't you know that you've delayed the whole thing because of that? Anybody that hears that, no matter how good or bad you are, the person will not feel good about it. Oh, okay. Okay, so for next time, maybe you give suggestions. You don't attack anybody, you give suggestions. So if people feel safe, you see, we're in the UK now, so psychological safety is very key. If people feel safe, they'll be able to speak their true minds when it comes to their meeting. So build the right team that are self-organized, committed, focused, to be able to speak their own truth, whether it's bitter, but as long as it's for us to effectively improve the team, then it's fine. So I'm just going to give examples of a retro exercise. Damsola, pick anyone within the call to answer this question for us. I'm happy for us to stay a bit. Apologies. Anyone, just pick anyone.
Adaise.
Hi, Adeze. Adeze, time. Are you there?
Hello, yeah. What did you say? Sorry.
Okay, so we want to start with an icebreaker for us to start this conversation, right? If you had a superpower or you're a superhero, in relation to the time you've spent in BlueSky, what will you be? So I can give you an example. For me, I'll be why is his name going off my head? You know this guy in why is his name going off my head? Okay, let me just pick someone else because I would like to mention the person. So I like to be Spider-Man. The reason I like Spider-Man is because I can fly everywhere. Or I want to be Invisible Man, right? So I can tell myself if I want to be a superhero, I like to be invisible guy so that I can maybe magic myself to the future and learn all these Scrum ceremonies and everything and come back so that I can have a clear understanding of what we've done. So choose your own, make it interesting. Don't mind me, I was just rambling. So pick a superhero that you love and in relation to your time within BlueSky. I purposely did not mention Stack and Code are geniuses. So you can pick any one of them. So please go ahead.
Would I say I would like to be an invisible man?
Okay. Why do you want to be invisible?
When I'm invisible, I can find myself anywhere to get solution or wherever I want without anybody knowing, and my problem will be solved.
Okay, great. So now you can imagine asking every other team member, everybody, Adeze answered this question in like 25 seconds or something. So you might imagine if you have even 10 people within your team, within 5 minutes, you guys are done with this icebreaker, right? It's just to break the chill. You see people calling names that you probably even don't know, but someone may always like to do is the Hulk. He might resemble as if he gets angry or something, but he's always angry. So he can do anything anytime. He can change anytime. He can beat anybody beatable, flip them, turn them around, just the way he handled Loki in Avengers. So I always like to be the Incredible Hulk because he's a very brilliant scientist. And with that, anything you're throwing at me in BlueSky, I'll be able to absorb it and sponge it into my brain and be able to apply it to work. That's why I want to be him. So
Olawumi, I think Deji also wants to answer this question. He had his hand up earlier.
Deji, please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to be up, but since you picked up, I would be Voltron actually.
Okay,
So I can save everybody from the mystery. Most especially the mystery of Agile, because Agile could be fragile. So yeah. So that's me. Thank you.
I like it. Agile could be fragile. Well, guys, since I've been with you, I've not heard this Agile could be fragile. All right. So really, that's it. Everyone could just, chip in. People come up with crazy things, and all of you just laugh, giggle at the end of the day. That's icebreaker. 5-10 minutes, you're done with it within the team. And people give funny things. If I had $1 million, the day I did this particular one in my team, like if you had $1 million, what would you do? I laughed so hard, I was tearing up because if I laugh so hard, I tear up. But when you're in a professional setting, you really will not laugh as hard as that. But all of us were giggling and laughing so hard because the amount of things people wanted to do with just $1 million. Okay, let me not put jobs because it's a lot of money for me too. People said a lot of things, how they would spend it and everything. So it was really fun. And then sometimes if you just want to put order to things, we use speaker wheels to put order to things. So I can put everyone's name here. See, I have Deji, I have Juliet and Co, right? I have Bolu's name. So you can just put their names on a wheel. You spin it. Once you click on it, the wheel spins, and you can use that. But like, if people are like not raising up their hands to do something, you can just use this, and then everybody's waiting, and then it falls to Tammy. All of us will shout, Tammy. So Tammy will tell us, the question or whatever we want to do, or maybe Tammy will be the one to drive the game for the day. It can be anything. We just use wheels to pick people out. Then sometimes, if we're out of ideas, because sometimes you'll be out of idea, but hardly we'll say, okay, let's do spot the difference. Okay, we'll give you 45 seconds to spot 15 different in this story. So you see the team member doing the clock, the fish, this one, that one. This one is holding a spoon. This one is holding this. This one is this is the 2 bananas, this is 3 bananas, this is a square cookie, this is you quickly do that, and it's also either game or icebreaker. People use this for games anyways. So you just have a lot of it, but you need to plan ahead of time and make sure you time box properly. Then I do tongue twisters too, it depends, but I hardly do all these things. My team, they go bananas with games. They have a lot of game ideas. We go to dailies. Sometimes because of the guys, in diaspora, we use some online games that all of us would delve into the game. Like there's one funny one I always like that. The game will ask you a question that draw a monkey holding an umbrella under the rain. So you draw the monkey holding an umbrella under the rain. Now we might be 12 on this call, right? So the 12 of us, the first question goes to the person, draw a monkey under the rain. Then I will be the one to respond to that, right? I will draw the monkey under the rain. With your phone or your system, or you quickly draw the monkey under the rain. When you draw the monkey under the rain, the third person is to interpret that, because the third person will not see that monkey under the rain. So the person can be saying monkey holding an umbrella. So the fourth person will get a question, draw a monkey holding an umbrella. And sometimes some people don't even finish the drawing because it's timed. It can be 40 seconds, it goes off. And by the time we go around, but as you're doing this change, this thing I'm saying goes to the first thought. At the time that person started, another question must have come to me the same way. So we just do different things. It becomes so, and by the time you now finish, the 12 of us will mean that we have 24 pictures to show. So the thing will now show all what we've drawn, from the question to what we drew, to what we interpreted, to what we drew, to what we interpreted, to what we drew, like that. So it will go round. So when we finish the game, then it will start popping up the pictures. Oh my God. You will laugh what people draw under 40 seconds. People can draw something that looks so crazy. It's always fun. We'll giggle. Even the guys in India, they always enjoy it. Sometimes, even if we want to do something, we'll say, please, let's play this one, because it's always fun. There's always something. But we do some. In fact, I've done, say, and Simon Says before. The speed Simon Says. I'm sure some of you know Simon Says. Simon Says, raise your hand. Simon Says, sit down. So you can imagine us in a boardroom or a conference room, rather, doing Simon Says. And when people pass, sometimes they'll just be laughing that this team, you people, you are fun. So it depends. Just make sure your team enjoys what they do. Sometimes it's a bit slow, but you need to find a way to cheer them up and bring the spirit back. Then these are simple retrospective, what went well, what could be improved, actions and all that. Then I already mentioned hot air balloon. This is one of the favorites for my team, for example. They always like these hot air balloons because, especially because of the recognition, during the course of the sprint, some people might have done awesome things for you, or people might have done, you just put the person thing, I can put here that, oh, Juliet was Juliet helped me resolve my whatever issue, or Damisola did this for me, like that. And then when we get here, we'll clap for the person, woo, whoop, whoop, like that. Then we bring back bright ideas. Some of the ones that are always very lean might be bright ideas and any question. Sometimes we might just have just one question. Okay, maybe when is the next date for so something, or when is the next date for whatever. They'll mention the name of the meeting. I'm trying not to mention too much so that I'm not really deep diving. The sunshines are just maybe bright ideas how to move the team forward. It might just be 2-3 things that we'll come up with. But when it comes to the rising here, the things pulling us along, thunderstorms, maybe IT issues, or things running for too long on all this AWS and all that, you see a lot of thunderstorm, things pulling us down, maybe people are coming with too many axes for the team, how we're going to protect ourselves within the team. So it's always give a clear picture of exactly. So all this, I'll give an example of how it looks like. We rarely use rose boards, but it's the same thing. And after everything, there's always these action items, all the things we think we want to action into the next sprint, we put it. As you go, you get to understand all what I'm talking about. This one is always a tug of war. I think I tell people this one a lot. You can imagine putting Glad in front of a Chelsea, and whereas half of the team is a Manchester fan, they will almost break their heads. This alone is enough for our icebreaker whenever we want to do, then like, though this is a very scanty example, but see how the hot air balloon is. So this is ideas of our team outings. This is what was bringing us up. These are recognition. I put the emoji taught us how to use Azure DevOps or something, like that. So we'll put these tickets. Now imagine the 10 of you putting like five tickets, everywhere will be full. We'll structure it so it looks better than this. I just did a rough screenshot to show us how it is. Then at the end of the day, see our action items. So we said we need a training on Agile for a day. We need team bonding session because it's been a bit. We need to improve information dissemination. Sometimes your leads will get an information, tell the PO, and the PO just, says it maybe once when people were not even listening very well within the team, and everybody forgets about it. So how do we disseminate information properly like that? So we took it as an action plan to work on like that. But this is just an example, like I said, just to show you how it looks like. Then the different tools for retrospective, like this one that I showed you now, this is Lucid, right? So there are different, people use Miraboard, Mural, people use Lucid Spark, which is the one I just showed you. People use Azure DevOps in itself, you use Jira, you use Mentimeter, people use different tools for retrospective. And then we go straight into the refinement. I told you, I'm sure everybody already has a good understanding of what refinement is about. Remember, it's a particular ceremony I say you do before the start of the following sprint, right? So the team looks at the product backlog and decides on further decomposition of that product backlog as against the next sprint, right? So the process continues until the team finds a good collection of user stories that they want to work on in the next sprint. The PO will now prioritize those stories and tell us, okay, this and this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. And then the team will estimate. Now, a proper estimation will be done during sprint planning, but the reason for the estimation and refinement is to see if that story is too big. If we need to further break it, we have an idea what we are carrying already into sprint. Not like we're carrying something too huge for us to complete within 2 weeks sprint. Remember, we'll see invest criteria now, so we'll have maybe a little understanding of it. But remember that within a sprint, we need to be able to put in work that we can finish within the next few weeks, which is 2 weeks, right? So we need to make sure that we have the right amount of work to go into sprint. Okay, so we also do severity, how important it is, or Moscow prioritization, different things. Then we make sure we have a clear AC, DOR, DOD. That's acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria is what is acceptable for us to take that into sprint. The conditions that must be met. Let me put it that way. The conditions that must be met before we take a story and say, okay, this story is clear enough for us to work on, right? And DOR is definition of ready, where we're saying before we start a sprint, are we ready to actually work on those things? So have we met the conditions that will say we are ready to start a sprint? For example, if we're waiting for a data, why should we put a story that is dependent on something we're going to get in 3 weeks' time when the sprint is 2 weeks? That story automatically can never be done within the sprint. So we should make sure that all our stories meet definition of ready, right? Then we have definition of done. That's when a story is now completed. Remember, definition of done is what we get out from the increment. When a story is completed, has it met the definition of done? Definition of done in the flip side is now that agreement that, okay, this and this and this and this is very clear. So these are around the increment. This defines that increment that we've done, the boundaries of an increment. That's what definition of done dwells about. And I always like to use example of my home. You need to sit and decide within your team what definition of done is. So I will just make it more. I don't want to deep delve because for definition of done, there are a lot of things. For you must get a PO, thumbs up, unit test must pass, you must do all those UAT, everything. You know, there are a lot of things to do, but I don't want to divert too much from Scrum ceremonies. But I always like to make people drive it home. So if I finish cooking, left with me once I've turned off the gas, the food don't done, right? But to my husband, I'm speaking jazz, the food is not done at all. But if I serve it in a plate, put a cutlery beside it, and put a cup of water on the dining and say, babe, the food is done, then the food is done. That's definition of done for my husband. So, and as a family, we sat down to agree that definition of done is when the food is served. That's definition of done, right? Now, in your team, you must sit down to have an agreement. Is it when we finish cooking and turn off the gas that is definition of done? Some teams will say, yes, it's fine by us as definition of done. But some teams will be like my husband to say, you know what, serve the food, let's be sure. So like my team now, once we're done, we've gotten all the data has been reviewed. We take it as definition of done because we will transfer to the delivery guys to do theirs. So it depends on what you agree within your team. But a delivery team will not take our own definition of done because they have to make sure that it is already working. That tool is working. Though to an extent, we're tilting towards, okay, let's wait a bit for the delivery guy to start making use of that tool that we have delivered for them. But it just depends. What I'm just trying to say is agree on your ways of working. I don't want to digress too much. So acceptance criteria, definition already, definition of done. You make sure that everything is understood during your refinement. Then the importance, we've already said it over and over a day. Backlog must be up to date, and the PBIs must be prepared for the next sprint. We need to prioritize. We need to make sure to avoid any chaos of the backlog because the backlog needs to be cleaned from time to time. Don't worry, you understand full understanding. But that backlog I'm referring to now is the product backlog. I'm not talking of the sprint backlog. The product backlog in itself needs to be cleaned from time to time. So you need to keep prioritizing, eliminate any chaos, anything that is redundant, fling it out. So keep the team updated on the status of the PBI. So that's everything on the ceremonies, right? Now, all this will drive it home to you with the workshop tomorrow. But I'll do a quick recap so that we'll grab everything in the next 5 minutes so we can.
Sorry to interrupt, Olawumi. Tona had her hand up earlier.
All
The
right.
question.
Tona should.
Sure, it's just a question on the refinement. The previous slide to this one, where you said that the team will pick until the second point. This process continues until the team finds a good collection of the user stories in the product catalog to be included in the sprint backlog. So is what is included in the next, because the backlog is the next bit of work, incremental work to be worked on. Is it that so it sounds like it's now being driven by the team, as in the developers, not the stakeholders at this point? Is it not the stakeholders?
Okay, I get
it's already been prioritized. Has it not been? Is it not from a list that's already been prioritized by the PO that the team will now pick the user stories?
Okay.
Or how does it
Thank
work?
you for the question. I always like this kind of that means you're listening properly. So thanks for the question. So I will go back to the building just to drive it home. What does the customer want? The customer wants to build a 4-bedroom house, paint it white, put the this, put the that, right? Then we all came home. That's the PO told us what it is. So we came to the team. Home is the team now to sit. Okay, what do we want to do? We want to do electricity. We want to do the design. We want to do the foundation. We want to do the this. So everything we've listed we want to do is the product backlog. Yeah.
Yes.
Everything we've decided we want to do is the product backlog. And next tomorrow, we might remember more things, throw it in the product backlog. In silly terms, just for your understanding, product backlog is more like the dustbin of everything relating to what we want to do on the house. You know, there are even wish lists that will be on the house. I want to do a garden where the flower will coil and roll and They're all wish list. You can put everything in the product backlog. So when you now do this refinement, okay, because even normally there's an order to things. Like I said, we can never start with electricity. We can never start with roofing. We're going to be starting with our plans and our designs, even before we do foundation of the house. So definitely when the team are picking the story collection they want to use for the sprint backlog, they are going to be picking things based on order of priority. But in this instance, the person that will be guiding you in that priority will be the PO, because even the stakeholders will be telling the POs what they want to see in the next 1 month. You understand? So in the next 1 month for that house, the stakeholders, they want to see the architectural design. They want to see the things we are mapping out, how we want to plan it. So that's what the team will be focused on. No matter all the things we've even dumped there. Then even usually teams in these days, they won't sit down and start writing stories on electrical and everything when we're going to be doing it later. Those stories can come up later because the product backlog is not static, right? It's something that we keep evolving. It can never remain the same. The world is volatile, very vocal, right? So things keep changing. We will not even start with that electric story. I'm just saying to drive me the point for you guys. You're not going to, people will not even remember electric at that start. The things will be focused on is design, foundation. For worst case scenario, we can get to building the block. We will not think of roofing, we will not think of electricity because we're not even in that stage yet. What they are chasing us for right now, according to the acts of the PO, but it's just that we have a mental picture that is the house we want to build. Just like the car, we have a mental picture is the car we want to build, but we want to do the screw. You see, as little as the screw that will screw the this to the that, we can take months trying to design what will suit and will suit for everything. You understand what I mean? So we'll focus on what is important. Hence, this severity, priority, acceptance criteria. This is where all these things is coming from this long story. So the PO tells us what the main axe is. There's a house, but for this month, our focus will be on the design and the foundation, right? So we start with that. So the stories you'll be seeing mostly around here will be design, foundation, design, foundation. So if we're building a website too, the first set of things you'll be seeing is the landing page, the logo, the header, the footer. Those are the first set of things, even if they're not functional at the time, even if they're not clickable, right? But just a picture of what it is, those are the first set of things we'll be working on. It will be much later. We'll be saying, okay, let's add capture. Let's add this one. Anything we want to add, let's add the social media. Let's add this one. We'll now be adding all those things much later. But there's always a act at the start that we're going to do. So don't get confused with it. The product backlog is just like a dumping ground for the set of things you think you want to do. Then you fish out the ones that are a good collection that you want to take into sprint. Then when you all agree on it, you do sprint planning, plan it, take it into sprint, start working on it, it becomes your sprint goal. Then when you finish it, it becomes something of quality, something of increment, and then you make definition of done. And then you can say you've done something valuable for the sprint for the customer. I hope you answered the question.
Yeah, that's fine. And then I guess it's the PO who would manage the expectation of the stakeholders as to what they're going to, because if they want it, say for example, the stakeholder is saying, no, but we want to see the electric, we want to see how the lights look. Then the PO will have to manage their expectation, I'm assuming, to tell them that, okay, we're not quite ready for electric yet, but you're going to see this.
All right. So that's what I call common sense. You don't even need to, you see, the PO, Scrum Masters, one of our main jobs is actually to shield, especially the Scrum Master, to shield the team from these external forces or making us not concentrate on the right things, right? So like you said, exactly what you said, the PO said, okay, but if they want to see something like that, you can pull somebody within the team with the understanding of everyone within the team. We can just pull somebody to say, okay, you know what? Can we just get a design on this? Because that's the axe. If it's important to them, it's an axe. So you see, all these things depends. But if the PO goes in and says, okay, that's not the focus for now, but if they say that's the axe they want, you are not management too. You understand? You give them what they want. But you also make them know that this is going to take us 2 steps back rather than us progressing in these other ones because we want to focus on this to give you what you say you want to see. So it just depends. Like I said, this is all examples. By the time you start doing the work, you understand what I'm saying. These are all examples just to drive home the point, all right?
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
All right. So we've gone through this. Keep the team updated. So we're here. So there's something we call invest criteria. So invest criteria is just, invest is an acronym for what a user story or the stories that we want to take into sprint. That's your sprint backlog now, must meet this invest criteria before we start a sprint. We're going to be wrapping up now. We're almost at the end. Apologies. So this invest criteria we want to meet is independence, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. Remember your assignments now. I'm taking it back. I don't want to call it assignment. Is it assignments? I'll call it now. My brain. So remember, the first thing, you're reading the Scrum Guide. The second thing, you're going to read the Agile Manifesto. The manifesto is split into two, which is the values of Agile and the 12 principles of Agile. You're going to look at the invest criteria and what it means. But I'll just be very kind to take us through invest criteria. So invest criteria, the story must be independent, it must be standalone with no dependencies. That's the independence there. That story you want to take into sprint must be a standalone, because it's this invest criteria that will make us know that your story has met definition of ready for you to start sprint. That's what invest criteria is for, right? I'm only saying this because we will not have the time to say it before you guys start sprint. Hence, while I always try to put invest criteria in this particular training. So it must be negotiable. That's, it can be changed anytime. It can be discussed. That negotiable, if there can be a discussion, okay, can we improve on this? Can we change this? It must be something that you can discuss on. That story must be something discussable. It must be of value to the customer. Remember, if I've not said anything today, I've said valuable several times. So that story must be something that wants to add to the customer. It must have a good value to the end user, right? It must be estimable. You understand estimation, right? But I'll leave it at that today, because if I start explaining estimation, is a separate thing. But estimation is the effort it will take you to do that story. So the team must be able to estimate the size of work they want to do within the 2 sprints. So that's the estimate. We must be small enough to be completed within the sprints. So it must be small enough to be developed, tested. Remember Agile at the beginning that had that circle stuff. Traditional was just a straight line. Okay, we plan, we design, but in Agile, every 2 weeks, that cycle must happen. You must develop, you must test it. You must develop, you must test it. So that is, we're making sure it is small enough to be completed within this sprint. And then the testable is that the sign off at the end of the day, right? It must be possible from acceptance criteria and definition of done. So that's invest criteria for you. Every story must meet this for us to say, okay, we are ready to start sprint and we've met our definition of ready, and then we can start those stories. You don't just put in stories into sprint. I gave an example earlier. You're waiting for a data and they tell you that the data will be given to you on the 31st of October. Between now and 31st of October, you'd have finished the 2-week sprint now. So why are you waiting, right? So why are you putting it into sprint? So that means you have failed to plan at the beginning. That story cannot be completed. As you carry in, you carry it out same. So it still makes all your metrics within the team affected, but I'm not going to metrics today. Okay. So remember, I told you the picture again. This will say our final story. Just a recap and a refresher for everything today. So Scrum ceremonies. Remember, the ceremonies are the sprint planning, the daily stand-up, the sprint review, the retrospective, and in between all this, we do a refinement, right? The roles in Scrum is the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the team, the developers. They are the roles in Scrum. The artifact in Scrum is the product backlog, the sprint backlog, and the increment. Now, the job of the Scrum Master is to make sure that the team upholds the Scrum values all through all these processes. The Scrum values, the empiricism in Scrum, the Scrum principles, Agile principles, everything. The Scrum Master is making sure that is happening. The product owner on the flip side is making sure you're propelling your team forward, getting the right vision from the team, prioritizing for the team, steering the team towards, the right direction. Same as the Scrum Master, because the Scrum Master is very, very responsible. If you do the rating metrics for a Scrum Master, we are highly responsible for the effectiveness of our team. So those are the two standalone guys, and the team are the main ninjas doing the actual work. Very interesting guys. They'll be the ones to do the development. Someone between them will do the testing. Someone within them will make sure they do that peer accountability, peer review this time around, and all that to make sure it's okay. You do your review and then we can move it to done. So you see that all the long story I've been saying since morning, these are the rules, these are the events, and this is what we want to achieve at the end of the day. That's the whole long story that I've been saying since morning. So one last question before I go. First person to raise their hands up, Damisola, is the person you ask this question. What is the best Scrum ceremony and why? This is the last page. Can anybody tell us? I've spoken about all the Scrum ceremonies. So what's the best Scrum ceremony?
Tona has a hand up.
Tona, shoot.
Okay, I would say there's two, but I'll say either the retrospective or the refinement, one of those two.
Okay, why?
Because those are the ones that will help you to improve, so that you're always improving on what you're doing. You're reflecting and you're able to improve for the next sprint.
That's a good answer. Thank you for that. As long as you have a why and you can defend your why, that's a very beautiful answer. Any other person? One more.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Daisy.
I would say the sprint planning, because you
why?
can't start a project without planning.
Because you can't start a project without planning.
Without planning.
Okay, that's a very good answer too. I like that. Okay. All right. So
sprint planning and the refinement.
no.
You have to do outside of the ceremony. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I would just want to pick one, which is fine. Your answer is right, Daisy. Your answer is right, Tona. So that's fine. But which of the ceremony? What's Deji's question? Which of the ceremony is primarily focused on reviewing the program? Oh, okay, that's fine. You're already putting our questions. Okay, so who wants to answer Deji's question? Which of the ceremony is primarily focused on reviewing the progress of the current sprint? Anyone can answer this.
Which of the?
Check the chat.
Is that not the retrospective?
Okay.
No, it's not actually.
Okay.
It's the refinement, no? I can't remember. Sorry. Let me mute myself. Let someone else answer.
Who else wants to give it a try?
I haven't seen the question.
You said?
I'm looking for the question.
If you check the chat, you see the question. Okay, as it is, I like this kind of thing. You have seen assignments now. Damsola, please munch the assignment and put on the Telegram. I probably will.
Is the sprint review?
Okay.
Because you showcase what you have done to the stakeholders.
All right. Okay. Somebody has hit the nail. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. But I still want to see more answers. People, I'm happy for you to drop your answers on the call. All right. So if I just want to answer these best ceremonies, the reason I always like people to answer this is during your interview, a lot of people meet this, like a lot of people meet what the best Scrum ceremony is. And the thing is, it's just about you defending. Nobody's going to hold you. If I like, let me call it daily stand-up, because I might like daily stand-up the best because I get to know the progress of every of the team members as we go. It keeps people in check. People are able to synchronize within the team to understand what value we are adding on a daily basis. Somebody else can pick sprint review where you review. Somebody else can pick the retrospective where we reflect. Somebody else can pick. So it depends on the very why. You need to explain your why. You know, the people that responded today, they just give a short why, but you need to explain. But if I was going to answer in the interview, I'm going to go the style that, you know, my predecessors, or how will I put it, have used, which is usually that, you know, there's no one best Scrum ceremony. It's like you having a table, right? If you have a table that has 4 legs, it's standing very well. Those are the whole Scrum ceremony. If you remove one leg from the table, guess what? You know the table will not fall, most likely. The table is still standing. But the moment you try to sit on it, especially if you sit on it where it's broken, you are definitely going to hit the ground. So that's Scrum ceremonies for you. You need them interchangeably. The whole Scrum ceremonies, they are all very important. So if you're in an interview and they ask you this, you can simply say they are all very important and we can't do without each of them. That's why they've come together to call them Scrum ceremony. But however, if you need to put a gun in my head to pick one, I will probably pick the planning, because like me planning ahead for what I want to do. And I always use my quote that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I don't know the owner of that quote, but I keep using it. So I will pick probably the sprint planning. And sometimes I've picked the retrospective before because I like retrospective too. It's where I can relax, express myself, you know, say all the things that went well. But if I now think of it again, I'll be like, am I sure I don't need to plan before I do this, you know? So, but you can pick anyone you love the most, because with time, you get to love some ceremonies more than the other, right? But it just depends on how you answer. You are free to answer any way you want, but just always make them know that you know that these ceremonies are all very, very, very important and should be carried out throughout the course of the sprint for the duration of the sprint. So that's how you answer that. Damsola, please make sure you get all these questions and put it into the chat. Okay, so the only person that's going to win my coffee for today, I'll ask a very simple question, and I'm happy for any one of you to unmute at once and respond. I'm happy for a chorus answer. What's the most common sprint duration we have? Anybody can unmute and answer?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
All right. How many Scrum ceremonies do we have? Should I put officially behind it? Officially, how many Scrum ceremonies do we have?
We have 4.
All right. All right. Okay. So, how many roles are there in Scrum? How many roles do we have in a Scrum team?
Is it 3 or 5?
3. Yeah,
3.
and 4. Scrum Master, PO, and then the team. But within the team, there's different, and stakeholders. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4.
No. Let's calm down. The stakeholders are not
The
part of the
development team, we've got
Okay.
3.
So
Okay,
what answer? How many
3.
roles do we have in Scrum? What's the answer?
3.
Great, thank you. Name them.
Okay,
Somebody
3.
already did earlier, so just go ahead. Don't be shy. Don't worry. It's okay for you to be
We've
wrong.
got
Product,
Yes.
Scrum Master, and the team.
All right. So rather than using the word the team, what's the word?
development team.
All right. Like I said, development team is a bit old school. We'll say developers, but it's okay. Nobody will chastise you if you say developers.
Developers. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. That's the introduction to Scrum for you today. Just for you to have an overview of Scrum.
Thank you, Olawumi.
Hope it wasn't too tiring for you guys.
No, But the class was interesting, so
All right.
I feel like
So,
sleeping.
any questions before we go home? Any question? That's why I actually wanted us to ask questions as we were going. So I'm sure people have a clear understanding. So any questions? Any questions? Please, even if you feel that, would they think, nobody's thinking anything, please feel free to ask your question. All right. Yay. So I can call anybody to answer my question now. Now I want to ask technical questions now. So is it that you ask question now or I asked you? Choose now. Adewale, you're unmuted. You want to say something? Adewale, you were unmuted now. Do you want to say something? All right. Tona, you want to say something?
Oh, no.
All right. Okay. So we're telling me that everybody here has a very clear understanding. So the reason I'm asking is so that when we're doing the workshop tomorrow, everybody will just understand what they are doing, because the workshop, you will ask questions, but you ask questions at the end. So I'll give us just an idea of what the workshop is going to be like tomorrow. I'm happy for you to stop the recording. Just give it a pause. If we need to turn it on again, we'll turn it on.